Yeti microphone. Is this working now? Hello, testing, testing.
Okay, there we go.
Cool. Yeah, it does have the bars going up now. It's letting me know that I'm full of hot air, so that's
Yeah.
always a good sign. I do have allergies, so I'm sorry if I rasp a little bit, but this is the real me, not some robotic replacement, as far as any of you know. So
Mm.
Mm.
yeah, it's working. They're saying it's working. Cool. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I am Blackfoot Ferret. I've been researching FNAF for about 7 years now. Started off way early, never stopped. Whether that was wisdom or just blind stubbornness on my part, I suppose you'll have to talk to my compatriots here about that.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to move this over so we can see nine again. That's good. Or well,
Yeah.
see where nine. You know what I mean.
See, my cat.
Yep. My cat should be here too, so we'll have feline frenzy, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's me. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I am Barry, also known as Spook or Dr. Spookulicious. Um, I've also been in the FNAF theorizing community for a while. I would say my biggest accomplishments are my uh, Reddit post about the logbook documenting all the reasons why the faded text in the logbook is definitely talking to Michael, because a lot of people seem to like go against that idea. And I wrote a document a couple years ago, simply known as the Shadows Doc, which was 29,000 words over 62 pages,
Okay.
just talking about the Shadow animatronics. And then later, I kept going. Like, I added to the document.
Well, as someone who's written like 70 pages in the Often Family Horcruxes, I have nowhere to talk. So we're just gonna have page length duels, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
that's me.
I
Okay,
guess it's
nine.
my turn then.
Yep.
I go by got 9 cats and I'm proud. 9 for short. Um, I have been a FNAF fan since 4 came out in the summer of 2015. And I've casually done some theorizing and pondering on the games, and I'd say I joined the theorizing community in the summer of 2020. Uh, I was active on Reddit back then. I'm pretty active on Discord now. I guess I'm more of a lurker. I'm very good at starting projects that I never finish.
I hear you there.
So I don't really have anything I can point to, but I guess that's me.
I'll finish Often Family Horcruxes someday. I've had to abort a few
Yeah.
things, like Jeremy's Last Sight, because my theories diverged from them.
Mm.
Yeah. I will also say, I just noticed you have a Starlight Brigade poster in the background.
I
That is
do.
very cool.
And you're the one who introduced me to that, and I thank you for introducing me to the wonders of Twerp.
Yeah. I moved all my background decorations as well. That's why I have the camera angled here.
I
We
notice you
got
have,
a head, a Mega Buster, that cool painting.
and you have Danny DeVito too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's Danny over here.
He's
Then
watching.
there's Danny Pillow over there,
He's
and
watching
this is
you.
off camera. But there's another Danny Pillow over there. So I have three Dannys in my room.
You're supposed to be a DeVito fanatic then.
Not really. It's just I bought the cardboard cutout and I got the other two things as gifts because people just thought I must have been a fan of him necessarily. It's weird.
He is cool. He's a
Um,
Eminem and tells people to eat him.
yeah. Um, so are we getting started on the debate?
Sure, I have a opening statement. It's about 3.5 pages long, so it's a little bit lengthy. But do we want to do a coin flip to see? I thought we were going to do a coin flip to see who got to go first, but I guess we can't see Nine's feed, so we'll have to just trust him, I guess. Or is it the right program? Is it a? It's him, right?
Uh,
Uh,
Or
oh, I don't think we've said to the chat that Nine is the one moderating this debate. I don't know if that
yeah.
was said out loud.
What pronoun do you prefer?
Any.
Okay, that's. I was hoping for more specifics, but
It's you can use he or they. Doesn't
okay.
matter particularly.
I still don't. All this time, I still don't know that much about you guys. So I'm him, boring cisgender person.
I use he or she as it says on this pin, but that's more of a recent development. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, it's easy to use the wrong pronouns. Just I've Asperger's syndrome, so I'm not great at socializing to begin with. This is just a layer on top of everything, so I try to cover everything in advance. Okay, so how do we determine who goes first? Do you have a coin or something? Do you have an opening statement, Spook? Or
I actually have a lot of coins. I'm just not good at flipping. Like there's, I wish I could just turn the camera down because there's a crazy amount of coins just on this desk
Huh.
that I need to get rid of.
I have a sacrifice ready for my cat over here, so if she jumps up, like she'll probably go for that instead of trying to eat my hands. Okay, well I can start if you guys want to.
Yeah, just go ahead and start.
Okay, it's accumulation of most of a decade of theorizing. It's a little bit windy, but hopefully it'll make some sense by the end. Opening statement. Now springsuits occupied a special place in the story for generations. Let's see if I can move this in here. Alright, Fredbear's family diner had Springbody and Fredbear, but when the multiple springlock failure incident happened at Fredbear's, Phone Guy suspended the use of all the classic suits at Freddy's for some reason. Dave trapped Carlton in a springsuit older than the golden ones, and then bragged he'd done the same thing to all the MCI kids he'd stuffed into the classic suits. The puppet didn't have to be present for souls to end up in robots in the novels. All she really did in the games was to put the heads of the classic animatronics on the dead kids. Real robot heads that were already designed to be worn. The Funtime animatronics are literally made of metal springs. Night 4 of Sister Location showed us Funtime Chica was a real springsuit. Pizzeria Simulator revealed that she had metal springs inside her too. And Help Wanted showed these same springs attached to Foxy's endoskeleton, once again suggesting that Freddy and the other classic animatronics were also springsuits. Glamrock Freddy has the same kid cavity inside him that Funtime Freddy does. Gregory knew Glamrock Freddy was a springsuit. That's why he asked Freddy to move carefully so he didn't turn into a meat pretzel. Meanwhile, a programming glitch caused the springsuit Rosie Porkchop to devour two stuck-up homecoming queens in the Phasma Fright story Together Forever, and then used their absorbed souls, voices, and memories to serve the very 8th graders they hated, once again without any help from the puppet. Why do people keep making springsuits? These robots that can somehow still function normally even with their inner workings crushed? These actual transformers would be hellishly expensive to produce even if you found a mad scientist who could actually build one. The springsuits also couldn't possibly be more dangerous. Everywhere they go, people die, in uniquely horrible ways, and then haunt the very robots they died in. The springsuits should have been cancelled after the first generation, and yet the old ones get rebuilt, and new ones get commissioned all the time. The Pizza Box has a literal army of Bear Glamrock endos, the same endos that power Freddy and his friends, ready to catch people whenever they look away. The springsuits are terrible at their declared purpose of acting as robots people can wear. If that's all the Aftons wanted, they could have just made Iron Man-style exoskeletons that already had these functions without any need for the incredibly dangerous springlocks. And yet, these springlocks remain a key part of their robot designs to this day. Why? The Aftons might be strange, but they're not stupid. They had facial recognition software in 1983 before personal computers had enough screen resolution to draw recognizable faces, and autonomous robots with full human mobility that are just becoming possible today. The Aftons were geniuses able to create wonders far before their time. So why would someone this smart make something so stupid as the springsuits? Unless the springsuits had a hidden purpose that only a mad scientist would know about? The board members who interviewed William at the start of Sister Location were very curious about an element of Baby's design, but instead of answering their real questions, William unhelpfully rattled off all of Baby's secondary functions. She could sing, she could dance, use a built-in helium tank, etc. This exchange suggests Baby did have a special purpose that William wanted to keep secret, And once again, Baby was a Funtime Springsuit. I must remove my Twitch notification, or my Steam notifications. And once again, Baby was a Funtime Springsuit, fully able to absorb Elizabeth's soul without help from the puppet. When most people see someone stuffed into a robot, they think of murder. But Dave believed it was a gift, and by stuffing the MCI kids into their robots, he had given them their happiest day, an eternal playtime as robots where they would never grow old or die, as if by killing them, he had given them a new, different life, as if Dave knew exactly what would happen to the souls of the children who went into the Springsuit animatronics. The puppet also considered stuffing the MCI kids in the games as a gift, and often children got their robots as birthday presents, like little Michael got Freddy at the Take Cake party. Creating death traps for unwary kids is one thing, but William not only created Baby for his own daughter, he knowingly wore a springsuit himself. Henry did the same. Dave even seemed proud of his springlock wounds, showing them off to Carlton. Who builds a device to kill someone and then wears it themselves? Unless that's not what the device is for. Dave knew the MCI kids would possess the robots they were stuffed into, and in the fourth closet, he even tried to replicate Henry's novel Henry's technology, because William is the robot master in the games while Henry is the robot master in the novels, Mirror Universe, by putting pieces of himself into the amalgam of the MCI kids. The robots didn't become possessed out of some magical desire for revenge on their killer. Their killer put their souls into the robots knowingly and deliberately. The Curse of Dreadbear hammered home the idea that mad science was in play rather than magic when we got to rewire Dreadbear's brain as if they were Frankenstein. That FNAF was grounded in science fiction instead of fantasy. This is echoed by the Fazbear Fright story He Told Me Everything, where the Fazio in each of the Freddy Fazbear Mad Scientist kits devours every kid in the lockdown and replaces them with clones made from their stolen parts. The link between FNAF and science fiction appears on Night 5 of the original game, where the voice that was mimicking Phone Guy drops the act, goes full demon mode, then recites a passage from Chapter 8 of the Autobiography of a Yogi. A chapter about Dr. Bose's theory of living metal, where this real-life scientist claims to have observed inorganic metal healing like living flesh on a very small scale, as if metal, like flesh, was a living material, and could therefore be a medium that a soul could inhabit. Dr. Moses' claims weren't replicated by other scientists and could be classified as pseudoscience in our world, but in the world of FNAF, his theory of living metal works. William's flesh fused with Springbody's endoskeleton so seamlessly that it's not impossible to tell where flesh ends and metal begins when looking at Springtrap, Scraptrap, and Burntrap. They are each one... bad grammar. They were each created by a perfect fusion of two types of living material. Springtrap was the result of a springlock failure that crushed the springsuit wearer inside the robot, but what happens when someone uses a springsuit properly, and allows the springlocks to cut into their flesh for a time, then takes it off, so that the two merged organic and metallic entities become separated again? If a living soul spreads to fill a person's entire body, then some of it should have leaked into the robot while the springlocks were used, and stayed behind after they were disengaged. This would create a backup copy of whoever wore the springsuit that would stay behind in the robot after their mortal human left, a Horcrux of sorts, that would live on long after their original human died. This is exactly what Dr. Talbert tried to do in the Fazbear Frights books, when his daughter Ronelle became gravely ill. Rather than lose her, he took a gamble and put some of her remnant into a Horcrux-like heart-shaped locket for safekeeping. Fortunately, Ronelle recovered from her illness, but something went wrong with Dr. Talbert's attempt to copy Ronelle, and his locket turned into Eleanor instead, an evil doppelganger of Ronelle who could perfectly mimic her appearance but acted like an inversion of her instead of a copy, a case of mad science gone wrong. The only reward for using a springsuit that could outweigh all of their terrible dangers would be the possibility of robotic immortality, a way a mad scientist father could make sure that their children never died but lived on in a different form. So the Aftons developed the springsuits in a bid, not bit, for mortality, So the Aftons developed the springsuits in a bid for robotic immortality and used the springlocks as an essential tool for linking their bodies to the robots, so this flow of remnant into their favorite animatronics could happen. This is why the Glamrocks have so many human personality quirks. Each one of them contains remnant from a member of the Afton family. Roxy's vanity, Chica's gluttony, Monty's cruelty, and Freddy's morality were all detrimental to Phasma Entertainment's profits and would never have been deliberately included as part of their programming. These human traits come from the human soul remnant inside them, an aspect of their original functions as friends/guardians/copies of each member of the Afton family. In conclusion, FNAF Springsuits are not just curiosities added for comic effect, they are the mad scientist breakthrough that makes the heart of FNAF's story possible. End of statement.
Whew. That's a hell of an opening statement, certainly. I'm not that familiar with debate formats in general, but that, like, if I'm not mistaken, that's like pretty much all the points that you listed as like what you're going to be talking about.
That's an overview of everything we're going to talk about. We can obviously split up in different things, like how many spring suits there were, etc.
Yeah. But I do think that that is like a good way to start this off, so that people who might not be as familiar with your theories, which we can both admit are not that popular or well known, can be like, oh, okay, that's like what this is about. Because most people really there's no disagreement on this topic. So if people hear, oh, there's a debate about the Springlock suits, they're like, what about them though? So I think that's a good way to start it off. The first thing I want to establish is I have noticed through and through, you and I have different definitions of what a Springlock suit is. As weird as that sounds to say, I tend to define them as just animatronic suit hybrids that were made specifically for employees to be able to wear, like having their arms in the arms, torso in the torso, etc., and control them and walk around using Springlock technology to hold back parts of an internal endoskeleton to create room to climb inside. Whereas your definition seems to be if there is a Springlock anywhere within the contraption, it is a Springlock suit. And we're going to need to keep in mind that we're sort of working with those different impressions of what they are throughout the debate, because really the Rosetta Stone of this whole debate is the FNAF 3 training tapes, and they don't give a strict definition there.
Well, I don't think a strict definition is necessary. It's the principle. Like, you connect a organic human to a metallic robot through some manner, and the remnant flows. This also happened in the Faster Fright story, The Breaking Wheel, where a guy gets crushed inside the exoskeleton that he can't control, but suddenly he can control it when it becomes part of him. It's not a Springlock suit, but it works on the same principle. It's the theory of living metal that powers all of this. So they don't have to be exact, perfect Afton designs. They just have to work on that principle.
Yeah.
So your definition then would be a suit that utilizes a Springlock mechanism to transfer a remnant.
Yes, a suit, the robot that connects itself to a human somehow.
Okay.
You can also do this with a silver knife. Well, that's a side topic, but I think that's what happened during Take Cake to the Children. The Magenta Man stabbed Charlie / Cassidy with a silver knife, extracted some of a remnant just like Dave did to Officer Dunn in the Silver Eyes, and then took that remnant and made Ella out of it, or Ella / JJ. Other topics, obviously, you don't want to diverge too much, but there are different methods. There are knives, there are Springlocks, etc.
My talking points, I'll briefly go over. Just like I only have 5 of them, so I'm just gonna read through all of them, and then we can focus on one of those if you want. First one being uh, and I'm gonna post an image to go along with this in the Discord group chat, which hopefully the audience will be able to see. The FNAF 1 anniversary images. Scott posted a few like 3D models, including this one right here of Springtrap, and we can see like the internal mechanism of the Springtrap, sort of what the actual model looks like in game if you remove some of the outer layers, and we can clearly see Springtrap's endoskeleton, which does not resemble an Endo 01 or an Endo 02. And in your theories, the Endo 01 is essentially meant to like fit inside stuff, and the Endo 02 is really more of an exo-endoskeleton, which can fit inside an animatronic, but also is meant to fit in the human inside it.
Well, the Endo 2
Um,
has limb cages that don't seem necessary for any purpose besides letting a human fit inside it.
but
Well,
we can clearly see here that Springtrap does not have an Endo 02.
but we can certainly agree that Springtrap Spring Bonnie is a springsuit, yes?
Yes.
All right. Different models, same principle of living metal, though.
Yeah. And the next point I have is Springtrap's eyes don't change when Spring Bonnie goes from suit mode to animatronic mode in the final Follow Me minigame. One of your points over the past couple years has been that, like, I forget like which one it is exactly, but that whether or not eyes are glowing or not glowing can indicate suit mode versus animatronic mode. But if that were the case, Springtrap's eyes would have changed when we see that transition. Yeah, in that mini game.
Well, I think that scene is making clear that we're actually seeing William's eyes inside the suit because it's already in suit mode, incredibly, despite being rained on for so long, since William is able to instantly jump into it instead of having to use a spring crank. Let's find the second image here. I'm organized, guys, I swear it. Where is the second image of that? Well, anyway, he stands up and he's got the... Oh, I think I edited the original one. Okay, I screwed up.
Yeah. They do certainly look like Purple Guy's eyes in that minigame. But it does sort of, at least in my opinion, throw a wrench into the like glowing eyes, not glowing eyes thing, because like William has glowing eyes all the time, but he, is not an animatronic in suit mode or whatever. So my next point, because I'm just gonna try and read through these the same way you read through your points. The fact that the spring lock suits are specially designed, and the folk guy talks about them like they're not your typical animatronic. I think that point is pretty self-explanatory. Like the way they're introduced seems to be, hey, here's this new technology that's not, what we've seen before. It's unique and fresh, and that wouldn't really make sense if like the only non-spring lock suit animatronic we'd seen was the puppet. It just doesn't click with me. Next point being, this one we actually agree on, but I just want to establish it. The fact that spring lock suits are just definitely not the only way that souls can be transferred or maintained. Like you say that the silver knife in the Silver Eyes is an example of that. I say the main example of that is the puppet, but that's something we can at least agree on. But I would further extrapolate that to mean that, like, if we see possession in the series, like if we see like, kid possessing Freddy, that doesn't have to mean that Freddy is Springlock suit, because possession is not exclusive to Springlocks. And final point being the consequences of the Springlock failure. There is, I really should have pulled this up before the debate, like the exact what it says in the logbook, but there is a logbook quiz, and then there's sticky notes pasted over the quiz, like, hey, just ignore this. Yeah, Springlocks aren't a thing. Just don't look into it. Don't Google the word Springlock or
Yeah.
whatever.
Several people wrote the logbook in
and-
different layers. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and that seems to back up what was heard in FNAF 3, where the phone guy seems to want to just completely retire and look past and hide away the Springlock suits from Freddy Fazbear history. And to me, that says any suit or any animatronic that exists sort of post Fredbear and Spring Bonnie era was not a part of the Springlock suits being retired, and thus they're most likely not Springlock suits themselves, or at the very least are not being used as Springlock suits.
Well, the Funtimes were being sent to the... Okay. The Funtimes were made of metal springs, and they were sent to the surface to harvest victims, then returned to base to have their stomachs scooped out. The metal was collected by the scooper and then kept heated so it, quote-unquote, wouldn't move, with the expectation being that if it wasn't heated, it would move. Like, Molten Freddy is just basically a moving mass of cables that's definitely alive, although it's basically just metal wearing a mask. So they had the Funtimes as Springlock suits that they kept using all the way to the actual game's sister location, although I think they actually predated Fredbear's. And then you have the Glamrocks, which, again, a new design, but the same principle. Gregory didn't want to become a meat pretzel. He knew how to operate Glamrock Freddy as a spring suit from the beginning. So they're still out there, even if they're new designs. The company knows how dangerous they are, but they keep making them regardless, and that's very curious.
I think this transitions nicely into Funtime Chica. I think we're both in agreement that the Springlock suit on Night 4 sister location is Funtime Chica.
Huh?
So, and really for the context of this discussion, it doesn't matter what it is, just I want to have a name for it. So Funtime Chica is explicitly stated to not have been used because she was considered too dangerous. And the only thing we learn about her in that minigame, besides that, is that she has spring locks and can be worn, just not very well. So I'm curious what other interpretation of that could exist, because it seems to me that Funtime Chica was retired when people realized how dangerous Springlock suits were, and realized we can't be doing this. This doesn't work. So just scrap all the Springlock suits to retire them.
But Funtime Chica would be a minor supporting character at Circus Babies, and the first thing that happened was that Baby ate Elizabeth, and her soul went into Baby without any help from the puppet. So, yeah, people know these things are dangerous, and you would think that a Funtime Chica would, as a minor supporting character, would be the cheapest one to appear in Pizzeria Simulator. Who's heard of her? What's she ever done? It's like she was there for one backup character for one night at a doomed restaurant. But somehow she's the most expensive one, which I find very curious. It's like Funtime Chica starred in a place of her own at some point along the timeline. And I'm thinking that's one of the reopenings of the FNAF 1 building as Chica's party world between FNAF 1 and FNAF 3. Again, try not to diverge too much, but they've kept her around for a long time. All the Funtimes are old. Like the Fazbear Fright novels have Funtime Freddy listing all these ways people have died throughout history, and all the ways he's killed people in the past, to the point that he's bored with it. He's trying to find new stuff because he's just getting mind-bogglingly boring for him. And this all suggests he's really old, just like Eleanor is. And it's like they've been around for so long. why are they still here? Why weren't they destroyed? Why? Again, more curious things, like the springsuits are dangerous, and yet they persist.
So why do you think Funtime Chica is described as never being used because she was too dangerous?
Well, I think that you're assuming you're trusting the voice you're hearing at night for, which I actually think is Shadow Freddy. I think the reason she kept Funtime Chica in reserve for letting other family members go eat people on the surface and get disemboweled every night is that her favorite character was Chica. That was what originally made for her, that sadly she, Charlie slash Shasha Cassidy, never got to possess because she was locked out of Take Cake to the Children, where she would have received Chica, and then ended up split between the puppet and JJ slash Ella. And Ella grew up to be the kid who was stuffed into Fredbear on June 26th and became Shadow Freddy. So she likes Chica. She didn't want to abuse Chica, but so she kept Chica in reserve for somebody special like Michael, that kid who locked her outside of the restaurant with everybody else, who she loves to bite all the time. So I think she saved Funtime Chica as a special torture for him.
So the way I'm reading this is you, but okay, my like statement was that like Funtime Chica was considered too dangerous to be used, and the only danger they were presented with is the spring lock. So it seems that the spring lock is retired. And your rebuttal to that, if I'm not understanding it wrong, is that the statement that she was retired because she was too dangerous was a lie.
Well, I think that it could have been a lie, or at the very least a
Okay.
half-truth. I'm putting up the face here to try to make the link more obvious.
Is
I'm
there
also
any
going to
poss-
put the quote in the
All right.
as well.
is there any possibility that it's not a lie? Because you said it could be. Is there any interpretation wherein she's not lying, but the danger presented is something else?
Well, danger is certainly there, although she says, like, I don't think it was ever used, at least not the way it was meant to be used, slash darkly. And, which is one thing I mentioned, like, why would you not know if the suit was used? It's not possessed. All the other Funtimes have personalities, they have things of their own. Funtime Chica uniquely doesn't seem to have anyone in it, at least until Michael got put into it. So, I took that to mean, like, she hasn't absorbed a soul yet. She hasn't been used as the springsuits are designed to be used, and I think the voice was telling the truth that Michael's breathing and heartbeat was setting the thing off, which identifies this thing as a death trap. This Funtime Chica is designed to kill any human that's wearing it, which is, of course, it's very dangerous. This thing has been deliberately designed to kill people, but I think she was reserving it for Michael and let the other family members endure a nightly torture of getting disemboweled instead, because this is her favorite robot. So I think we only got part of the story when she said it wasn't used because it was dangerous. All of them are dangerous, but to keep using Ballora and Funtime Freddy and Funtime Foxy all the time to kill children, and then disembowel them every night and collect the remnant and all this, there must be more to the story that Funtime Chica specifically was held in reserve.
Right. So I've placed the two relevant quotes in case we wanted to take a closer look at the text there.
All right.
You can at least hopefully see how, like, from my perspective, it seems like it seems like this voice is telling us that the springlock suits in general were deemed too dangerous at some point and then locked away. Like, do you understand where I'm coming from on that?
Yeah, I brought up the picture here. Like we could see some of the cables in Funtime Chica's breastplate. They're metal springs just like the other ones. And like you could see images from sister location where all of them under their shells have the metal springs. Let's see extras. Like here's baby being constructed. And
Yeah.
like it's the same stuff inside Funtime Chica as you find inside all the other ones.
Yeah. This was one of our debates that just like stuck with me because I really don't see that material as being made of springs. It looks more like galvanized wire to me, and it could be in the shape of the spring because spring is not a material; it is just a shape. But um, like even if they were, and even if they had like a lot of springs in them, um, you can see how, with my definition of spring-lock suits at least, um, having springs somewhere in their mechanisms is not the same as using spring locks to hold back endoskeleton parts to allow Fazbear Entertainment or Afton Robotics employees to enter. Um, like one does not necessarily lead to the other or point to the other. Um,
Well, again, the important thing is that there's a way to connect the human to the animatronic somehow. And
yeah.
the Charlie's novels mentioned like the spring locks are little knives that cut into people. Carl seemed to feel he was being pricked even when he was in the machine. Two of them pricked the back of his neck. Dave gets fresh spring lock wounds every time he wears it, even properly. And then like the twisted animatronics, they don't really seem to need them, but they have spring locks anyway, and like they're inside of them like knives. And it's amazing that these things keep showing up. And I think the sister location robots were designed to make it superlative. Like there are springs everywhere. It's like, hey guys, this is a spring lock suit. I think they designed to make it as non-subtle as possible, and all of them were made together. Baby was able to absorb the soul of Elizabeth somehow, and the only candidate I can see for that particular one would be the ability of a springlock suit to make a connection to the person and then have their soul go inside it when they died. Again, it's the only thing that is important. The different models aren't important. If the principle of the theory being a living metal being used to allow a human soul to transfer from an organic body to a metal one, that's what makes it all work. So I'm thinking that Sister Lakeisha was doubling down on there. These things are made of springs. It's all segmented metal somehow, so you can interpret that as not being springy enough or not, but souls are going into these robots somehow, so it's still living metal.
uh, Nine is the one who has the novels on him currently.
Hmm.
I tend to borrow Casey's copies, but she's not home right now. So, um, can you find like the part with Carlton trapped in the suit?
I
I
already have one line pulled up, so I'll just put that.
yeah. Because based on the FNAF 3 description of how springlock suits work, um, it seems that like if they fail, you're not being stabbed by the actual spring locks themselves. You're being stabbed by like the spring locks are failing to hold the endoskeleton parts in place, and you're being stabbed by the endoskeleton parts.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm uh, yeah, pieces of metal
This
pressed back
Well,
and forth
yes,
in
but
the
even
image.
then, even when Carlton wore the suit, the springlock still stabbed him in the neck. He was technically wearing
Does
it properly. It's like the
does
obviously when it fails, everything crushes you inside. You're a pulpy mess. You're really dead. But if you wear the spring suit properly, you still get they still stab into you like knives.
I think it was stated in the book, um, like someone in the book said that it was just because Carlton is like a large person. Um, but uh, yeah, like like I know it says he was like poked
You know,
in the back of the neck. Does it say poked by a spring lock or poked by something being held back.
It's not
by
very
a
specific,
springlock.
but he could feel other things inside the mascot's torso, pieces of metal that pressed against his back and poked into him. This is the mechanic here. It's like the springlocks are connecting him to the robot. He also got stabbed in the neck, but those were just several springlocks out of many. Something in the
Doesn't
torso is
say-
poking into him here. That's the verbatim reading of this.
Yeah, but it doesn't say what in the torso is poking into him. I'm arguing that it's not the springlock itself. It's the thing that the springlock is supposed to be holding back.
Pieces of metal that pressed against his back and poked into him. As long as it's part of the robot, it's still going to make that connection. And
Yeah.
the springlocks are the active element that does that.
Yeah, I'm tying this into the question of whether the Funtimes are, quote, made of springs, and that, like, hopefully you can see my point. Like, if the things that actually make the connection, make the soul transfer, are not the spring locks, then something being made of springs, and not even being made of spring locks, just actual springs, certainly doesn't seem to imply that they're like springs does not lead to spring locks, that's how I look at it. I'm not being very coherent right now, but hopefully there is a point somewhere in there.
It's complex stuff that's gone for a long time, so it's filtering through it is difficult. I'm just trying to distill everything.
I found the quote where Dave describes exactly what will happen during a springlock failure from the Silver Eyes.
All right.
Oh.
Do you have the part where he says he did the same thing to all the MCI kids?
Okay, so it does say
I can
all
pull
the
that
locks
part up.
was not going to do. Okay.
All right. So I'm just gonna. Sorry, allergies. I have a HEPA filter running, but it still gets to me a bit.
So it seems like Dave is suggesting that both here, like the spring locks and the things they're holding back, will both stab you simultaneously.
Well, in the Together Forever, it's like once you become a gory mess inside Porky, what's her name? Come on, brain. Rosie Porkchop, yeah. It's like the first girl goes in, she gets pulverized. Jessica goes in, a name from the novels, which I immediately raised my eyebrows a little bit, because actually unrelated, when in the what is it, the good ending of Security Breach, where we get, what is her bloody name? I can't. Female robot antagonist. I'm getting autistic right now. Vanny, that's right. When we say Vanny, she looks like Jessica when she comes out that door. Like, you open the Ultimate FNAF guide, you look at a picture of Jessica, it looks almost like the spitting image. So I'm thinking that some of the characters from the original Charlie novels do show up again in various forms. But anyway, when Jessica goes in, she notices that all that's left of her friend is a bloody face, but she can still hear her friend's voice somewhere in the robot, still alive. Like her friend's soul is in Rosie Porkchop. So clearly some sort of soul transfer happened then when she got crushed inside. So that's when springsuits act improperly, people definitely get sucked in. But my argument is that even when they're used properly, which you would think would be their usual mode of existence, the remnant transfer also happens. And this was deliberately designed. Right.
I have the quote where the book points out that this is the same thing that happened to the missing children. The quote that I found was not from Dave, it was from Carlton's internal monologue. I'll look to see if Dave mentions it, but this is the quote I found.
I'll try to get a...
Yeah. I do also have a written version of this point, so I can read through that. there's a few paragraphs. But Ferret's point is Dave trapped Carlton in a pre-golden spring suit in the Silver Eyes, then bragged that the very thing he was doing to him is what he did to all the MCI kids. And I say, first of all, if the novels featured all Springlock suits, how would that tie into your mirror universe theory? Wouldn't the logic then be that not all the animatronics are Springlocks in the games?
Well, there.
My original plan.
Wait, go for it.
Yeah, my original plan for this response was to read out the whole scene with Carlton and Dave, but it's far too long to actually do in a live debate. What I did notice rereading it is that Dave isn't the one who says this is what happened to the kids. Carlton thinks it internally, and this thought comes before Dave explains how the spring suits operate. The line is, "This is what happened to Michael. You are what happened to Michael." The key word being this. Under your interpretation, the "this" that Carlton is referring to is being specifically trapped in Springlock suits. However, the "this" could simply be being put into an animatronic in general, being kidnapped by Dave, being kidnapped and put in a back room by Dave. It could be vague or specific depending on how we choose to read the scene. But seeing as Carlton doesn't know what Springlocks are when he has the thought in question here, I doubt the thought would be, being trapped in a Springlock suit is what happened to Michael. I will leave open the possibility that I missed the part of the scene wherein William brags about doing to Carlton what he did to the other children, and gets more specific than being kidnapped and stuffed, but I find it more likely that this is just misremembering.
Well, I'm trying to find the passage right now. Alright. Here's where William talks about... I'm not sure if I should actually show the book on Twitch or not. I'll have to make like a screenshot of it or something.
Yeah, in the meantime, while you're looking for that, you can explain the mirror universe thing, because I just sort of threw that point in there.
It's something about I've discovered by observation. For example, like in the novels, Henry is the master robot builder, William is his jealous apprentice. And that seems to be the inverse of what happened in the games, because you have... Here, agents that I believe are from Phasma Entertainment, I know you disagree about that, are asking William how Baby works. They're not from the same company. They don't know. You think if they were Afton Robotics employees, they would know all this stuff, but no, they're grilling about how it works, and William's not being helpful to them. So there's something that William knows that Henry's company wants to know, and William isn't telling them. So it's seeming to me like in the games, William is the master robot builder, and Henry wants to know his secrets. Then there are other observed details, like a William being the business guy in the novels. That's an inversion of this. Like Phone Guy is the business guy in the games, and I believe that Phone Guy is the teen, quote-unquote, teen version of Henry, the version he was before he upgraded into adult Henry / Cassette Man. He works for Henry's company, Phasma Entertainment. He communicates to people through pre-recorded messages, like Cassette Man does. There are a lot of parallels, so that's my theory on that. Lost train of thought for a moment. Mirror universe things, like simple things like Charlie wearing white shoes in FNAF 4, but prefers black shoes in the novels. The kitchen is a mysterious thing we could never see in the games, but it's clearly visible and completely boring in the novels. Other parallels. All the MCI kids died in one place all at once in the games, while they were spread out over a period of time in the novels. I think the MCI kids, the Save Them kids actually got swapped in the novels, because there were like two. You see the lineup of the MCI kids in FNAF 4, and none of them appear to be girls, but two of them are girls in the novels, and I think that was the case for the MCI victims. It's, again, a lot more work to go into that. That'll be in the After Family Horcruxes, but other parallels. Let's see. None of Charlie's friends in the novels are members of her family, while I think all of them are, including Jessica and Michael, in the games. I do think that all the MCI kids were Afton family members. That's why you see, the classic animatronics having the endoskeleton inside them, the second mouth. That's a bit like Dave being trapped in Spring Bonnie. It's like he's he was an android already, you see his endoskeleton inside there, and all the MCI kids also had endoskeletons. They were already androids with undying synthetic flesh that didn't die after they were stuffed, when they were stuffed into the robots. And you see pictures of like the little kids tearing apart Mangle in FNAF 2, this massive steel framework that wasn't originally designed to be pulled apart. But here you have these toddlers doing something that WWE superstars could not do with their bare hands. It's like these kids are not normal. They're robo kids or something. So I think that so that's a difference. Other differences. Let's see. In the Twisted ones, Charlie visits the FNAF 4 house, quote unquote, which is a real house that seems fake, whereas in FNAF 4 it's a virtual house that seems real. I had a whole document about flip side versions of the two, but there's basically a whole litany of observed details how the novels and the games have an inversion somewhere. And so in terms of not everything is flipped. I think the Springlock suits still function on the same principle as before. Obviously the family members are still there, even if I do think the family tree is still intact. Like Henry is still Charlie's father. Sammy is her twin brother. Some things are flipped, some things aren't. The only way we can tell is by observation. So
yeah, I wanted to throw that out there because sometimes like you will like I genuinely think it's a mistake. You will make an argument something along the lines of, this detail is, one way in the novels, and there is a mirror universe. Therefore, it must be the opposite thing in the games. Whereas the argument should go, there is like it is this way in the games, and it is the other way in the novel. Therefore, it is a mirror universe.
Well, if you inverted everything, humans would no longer breathe oxygen; they'd breathe nitrogen or something, and the whole universe would be unrecognizable. It's the whole idea of a mirror universe is you contrast it to the regular one, like in the famous Star Trek episode Mirror Mirror. The Federation is a fascist organization, and they're the evil ones that are subjugating everyone else. But you still have the same crew, in basically the same positions. It's just that they're evil. It's evil versions of all of them. So you can compare and contrast the two. Like Scott said, the story of the games, the novels, did not stack together neatly with two puzzle pieces, but because they're different stories, but they were still canon, because they are still related, because one is the mirror universe of the other, which allows you to compare the two and compare and contrast elements. You notice something interesting in the novels, you can look to see, is this also present in the games? And you can make some great discoveries that way.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to get this out of the way because there have been times in the past, although I don't think recently, where like you have objected to like something I've said on the grounds that it doesn't fit with the mirror universe, implying that if something is one way, like in the novels, that it can't be the same way in the games because of the mirror universe, and I just want to see if that's still
not everything is flipped, but there are several observed details. I listed some of them. I'll think of more as we go along that do strongly suggest that the novels were designed as a mirror universe to the story of the games. For one thing, I think our Charlie in the novels is the protagonist and the puppet, whereas in her position she's Cassidy in the game universe, becomes Shadow Freddy, the antagonist. So I think that's a huge change. Like, she's a major antagonist in the games. Shadow Freddy is lurking behind almost everything. I detail that in Chapter 3. It's a long explanation, but I find that to be a really shocking difference. The antagonist in one is the protagonist in the other. That's pretty huge.
I have no problem with the mirror universe in general. Let's get back to Carlton.
Okay.
Because where we left off before the mirror universe topic was that William is not the one who says that what happened to Carlton is what happened to the other kids. Carlton thinks that before he learns about spring locks. So this he's talking about is most likely not being trapped in a spring lock suit. It's more about being trapped in an animatronic in general.
Well, my argument is that most of the animatronics in general are also spring lock suits, but fair enough. This is my cat, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You. Yep, she decided to join us. This is my moderator. We both have a cat on our side.
I got 9 cats.
Now we have 10. That's a bigger number.
But yeah, I think, I mean, obviously it would be silly to use the idea that all of the animatronics are spring-lock suits as a premise to try and prove that all of the animatronics are spring-lock suits. I like, but my thinking here is that it certainly doesn't imply that what is said of this suit also applies to the suits that the other kids were stuffed in the novels at least, and I think that would, sort of help the idea that they're not in the games. What I want to transition to now, because I think that it's a fairly nice transition, is the question of, do you think that stuffing a child's body into a non-spring-lock suit is even possible?
Well, you can easily test that if you have like a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic. It's a solid metal framework. It's like people don't fit inside. It's not designed to be worn. It's not a spring-lock suit. And yet you have going back to the earlier point for a minute, you see the puppet putting the heads of the real animatronics on all the MCI kids. These heads were detachable and designed to be worn by kids. And you see that again in the Fazbear Fright story of You're the Band, where a kid wears the literal head of Freddy Fazbear, gets possessed by a ghost that was inside the head. Then they have to put the head back on him to suck the ghost back out in order to cure him. It's like this thing makes a connection. Ghosts can transfer through that connection into the head and back, and then you put that head on the real robot and you have Freddy Fazbear again. It's like remnant manipulation is happening, and it's happening by putting the springsuit heads on people. So, like Fredbear is like a golden clone of Freddy. It's like the novels describe him as a yellow Freddy Fazbear suit. And except for color, he's indistinguishable from Freddy in every design detail, including, I believe, being a spring-lock suit. It's like I think Henry wanted to be Freddy, but when William denied that and gave the role to Michael, Henry, that is William's eldest son in the games, got really mad, went out into the world, made Fazbear Entertainment, got a ton of money, came back in, bought out the family business, and started redesigning his father's animatronics, and then made Fredbear as like a middle finger to his younger brother Michael. It's like, this bear is better than yours, it's golden. And so I think the spring locks have been part of the design for some time, and like Fredbear is like and Spring Bonnie, again, like why are you calling it Spring Bonnie if it was the original? Why do you need a modifier, which should just be Bonnie? They're knockoffs of animatronics that already existed before then. So what was what was your point right before that though? Sorry, I got a little sidetracked.
My point is I believe that assuming that you have killed a child,
Mm-hmm.
which I won't assume you've done, but like hypothetically, I think it's.
Oh, can a person actually fit into a non-spring-lock suit? And I think the answer is definitively no. If it's not designed for it, you're basically did that in like the the first one, like the scene where the Hulk tries to smash Loki into the floor. It's like that's what it would be like. You would be bashing a human body against a solid metal framework, and it would just be pulverized. It would be like chop suey. It wouldn't look human at the end of that. It's like unless the robot is specifically designed for a human to fit inside, I don't see any way of doing that.
2 points I want to make. One, um, I I think it's very interesting that you say it wouldn't look human anymore. Does it need to look human? The child's already dead, and the point of putting them in the suits would be to hide the bodies so that no one could find them again. Um, but
That's the stated
two,
purpose.
I think that this might be like the one of the main cores of the issue, because as soon as you see anyone being able to fit inside an animatronic, your first thought is, oh, Springlock suit. Like that's what your argument is with Glamrock Freddy, even though the words Springlock are never used in reference to him. It seems to be, oh, you can fit inside Glamrock Freddy, so Springlock suit. But like I think that there's no reason to think that William specifically wants to keep these children identifiable as themselves. Like it doesn't matter how gory or mangled of a mess their bodies are by the time they're stuffed. They're not going to be found. That's the point. And the points about in FNAF 1, the jumping off point for the whole lore of the series, it's said that there's blood and mucus oozing from the suits. It doesn't sound like they were put in there cleanly. It sounds like there's just bodily juices just leaking everywhere.
They are really mangled up, and it is amazing that the bodies would still be functional. That the animatronics, like in the novels, would still be able to breathe and do things like eat pizza, like Chica always does, years after being stuffed. It's like you would think they'd be super dead to the point of being desiccated in dust by then, but somehow these robots keep doing things that humans would do, like eating pizza and breathing and acting like they're not dead. They're actually still alive despite being mangled beyond recognition. That's why I think the MCI kids were all androids before they were stuffed. That's not humanly possible. So, but they do keep producing blood and mucus.
Do you think that when this is a serious question? Do you think that when Glamrock Chica is eating pizza, that it goes into the actual human stomach that was stuffed into it?
You have to ask what she's doing with it. You have pizza boxes littered all over the place. She definitely makes it known without any. That's how you even lure her. That's how you lure her with the Monty mystery mix. You put it in the trash compactor and she goes for it. She's eating organic stuff all the time. Why would a robot ever need to do that unless it also had an organic component? How could a robot do that?
I mean, we don't. This is an awkward point to make. We don't know where it goes. We don't know. We don't ever see Chica go to the bathroom. I mean, the only animatronic we've seen go into the bathroom is Freddy in FNAF 1.
Well, Glamrock Chica vomits up a ton of stuff. Actually, a video of her vomiting onto the camera for 45 minutes. It's in my recent video, but there's stuff that goes in, stuff that comes out. Certainly.
Is it chewed up vomit, or is it just stuff that went in?
It's random garbage. It's cans, various bits of paraphernalia. It's disgusting and fascinating at once. But
so what that says to me is that none of that was actually digested. She put stuff in her mouth that just sits in her stomach for a while, and then it just leaves. It's not digested. It's not pooped out or whatever. It's just if it's Mr. Bucket. That's what it is.
Okay, that's.
It's Mr. Bucket.
I saw an episode of like the video game nerd. It's like those were horrifying episodes. It's like,
Oh yeah, the board games episode, iconic.
put the
But,
balls in your
you know,
mouth. It's like, ah.
yeah, like Mr. Bucket isn't actually digesting the balls. They're just sitting in the bucket, and then they're leaving through the mouth. This is the worst analogy I've ever made,
Okay.
but I think you see my point.
Well, we're talking about
Um,
organic functions. One thing Chica says in Security Breach is, "I smell pizza," and Roxanne also, if she's nearby trying to hunt for us, she sniffs the air. It's like these robots have a way to process organic smells. That's either that's really fascinating technology, or they again more evidence of having an organic component.
I wish I could actually like find the source, but I heard someone, actually maybe someone in the Twitch chat knows it. I heard someone at some point say that there was some poster in Security Breach that alluded to like possibly the game being in like the 2030s, as opposed to, I think, the most common theory in that it takes place in 2020, given the like age of Vanny lining up with that. But it seems like
I'd like to see it if you have
can't
it.
find it.
Okay.
Yeah. But even if this isn't like 10, 15 years in the future, FNAF's technology has always been like super advanced. And the way that I've always looked at the Glamrock animatronics is not that they're necessarily organic. They're just so far along the line that they've reached the point of being able to have a sense of smell. They've these are such advanced robots that they're able to develop like complex personality disorders and have insecurities about themselves.
For a relevant quote, maybe that point, I'm just gonna put in the chat one of the duffel bags from Security Breach.
All right. Oh, I think you showed me this one. I think I know what you were about to post.
Potentially.
She's reminding me that I should be paying attention to her instead of the keyboard. Hi.
Yeah, Chica is stated to have a personality chip.
Where is that again?
This was one of the duffel bag messages that you can find in Security Breach.
Okay. I have a list of those.
Yeah.
Which one was it specifically? I have a list of them.
Dan posted it in the group chat.
Chica report.
Chica report. Okay. Messages.
Chica's personality chip has always been a bit quirky, but the new pizza-flavored Monty Mystery slushy syrup has adverse effects on her programming.
Here we go.
Yeah. So now we have it twice.
Yep. I love redundancy.
Yep. I know. I've seen
it actually. It doesn't have a listed location as to where you can find it on the wiki, so that's unfortunate. I was hoping to pull up the location in which it was found, but
yeah, the places they're found is fascinating. Like in the abandoned showers behind Chica's kitchen, you find the message about the meeting that everyone has to report to or get fired. And then
there's
you go
definitely
and then you
stuff
go
to read into.
Yeah, the where they're found is also important.
Point being, Chica is stated to have a personality chip, implying her personality is being intentionally programmed, and thus it doesn't necessarily have to come from someone who was murdered and stuffed into her. The personality is in the robots themselves.
So why would the pizza-flavored Monty Mystery mix affect her programming? Again, this is an organic thing that a robot is eating, so it's implied that this affects her somehow, and that's very curious to me. How is this possible?
Yeah, definitely.
If I could butt in with a point quickly, the character Chica that's depicted in Help Wanted, which in universe as a game is definitely shown as liking pizza. That's an element of her character. So perhaps that's what was attempting to have been replicated with the personality chip.
Well, you also have Chica rummaging about in the kitchen in FNAF 1. It's like, what's she doing in there? It's like, we can't see. But it definitely sounds like she's going to town in something.
Yeah. There was. Oh, right. I was trying to think, how did we get here from Springlocks? And it was the question of whether like one could like stuff a child into it. I know for like it is a child, so they're going to naturally be smaller than like someone actually the size of the animatronic, certainly. Um,
Still, though, it's
but
still
even
a
then, I don't
solid
think.
metal robot that's not designed to be worn. It's like, how do you put anything in there that's not supposed to fit in there?
Well, I'm trying to think. Do we actually see like the interior of actually, this is an impossible question because I was gonna say, do we see the interior of a like full size animatronic that Ferret does not believe is a Springlock suit? Uh, but then I
Hmm.
realized we don't see the exterior either. That animatronic doesn't exist. We're just talking hypothetically. Um,
Well, it is curious. Like, I think
so
the toy Chica and toy Bonnie are really small. I don't think the obviously compared to like the withered animatronics, which are towering and huge and definitely are designed to have a human fit inside them. Those are too small unless you're like dealing with an actual baby or such. So that's more curious as to how they get remnant inside them. But then if they're literally using pieces from the withered animatronics, you'd think there'd still be a remnant link there. I'm curious if you
hmm,
stuffed someone into the withered animatronics, if the toys would get some of that also. It's a different conversation, but there could be other means of transferring remnant after it's been extracted by a springlock mechanism.
yeah. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. I still like. I still don't see why the like bodies would have to be in any reasonable human-esque shape by the time they're stuffed in order like for the storyline to make sense. um I don't know if you answered that.
Well, it's the souls of the kids are in the robots, and their flesh is still alive somehow, which is why I think it's synthetic flesh instead of actual human
Right.
flesh. So I guess it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter what their actual shape inside actually was. But we do see in FNAF 1 that there are endoskeletons inside the robots. And you notice things like in Fun with Plush Trap, when Plush Trap chomps you, he only chomps you with the outer jaw. The outer jaw is powered. The outer jaw can bite, but the inner jaw never opens. It just stays closed the whole time. So, what
Hmm.
is the purpose of the inner jaw? It's like a separate system entirely. It's not necessary, but it's still stuck in there regardless. This makes me think of Springtrap's two faces, where the outside face is gritty to ha ha ha, the inside face is screaming, it's like, help me! It's like, I think there are two people in that robot, one that controls the outer shell, and then William with his endoskeleton stuck inside it.
Hmm.
Like the golden
I'm
suits can
gathering
contain an endoskeleton inside them as well as like a human, especially if the endoskeleton
uh,
is also inside a human.
right now I'm gathering relevant quotes from um yeah, I'm trying to find relevant quotes from FNAF 3's Springlock suit training tapes in regards to like what the Springlocks are actually doing. My computer's being very slow, and that's annoying.
Well, I'm thinking that what the
Um,
Skrillex are doing is the core mystery behind everything. We're only going to get hints about it, but we're supposed to deduce from all this evidence, like what they're designed for. And this, my argument is, this is what makes FNAF tick. This is how souls get put into robots, and we get this situation.
it's how souls get put into some robots.
Sure.
And I agree with that point completely. So, like, yeah. I think that's everything Fungus isn't a matter. Turning the crank will recoil and compress the animatronic from the sides of the suit, providing when to climb inside. Please make sure the spring locks are fastened tight to ensure the animatronic's devices remain safe. When using an animatronic as a suit, please ensure the animatronic parts are tightly compressed and fastened by the spring locks located around the sides of the suit. At no point is it stated, and this is something that I only looked for and noticed now. It never says that the endoskeleton is being moved out of the way. Just parts within the actual animatronic.
Well, its guts are being stretched to the outside to make room for a human inside it.
Yeah. But it doesn't say endoskeleton. I think that the endoskeleton most likely is removed, but it's more the actual parts attached to the suit that are being moved away. Because the phone guy does say in the very first phone call in FNAF 1 that they will stuff you into a suit because they think you're an endoskeleton, which is obvious. Obviously that excuse is
Yeah, you notice Bonnie
bullshit,
passes the bare endo in the
yeah.
in the room and just looks
Yeah.
at the camera like, "Hi." It's like, why aren't you trying to stuff that into a costume? It's like, because it's not
Yeah.
you. It's like I don't think Phone Guy is telling us everything.
But in order for that to be a in order for that to be an excuse that even makes a lick of sense, the FNAF 1 animatronics are stuffing you into suits that don't have endoskeletons in them. Do we agree there?
Stuffing you into suits that don't have endos. Well, I mean, you see, you see in the back room the bare endoskeleton sitting on the bench, and then whenever you die, it's Freddy. So I think the implication is that it was that endoskeleton, or sorry. Could you restate the point again?
I'm arguing that there are internal mechanisms within the suit that are not the endoskeleton, and that when employees climb into the Springlock animatronic hybrid suits, they are removing the endoskeleton first.
Well, the only thing that's important is you make the connection between the. Sorry, I start coughing. It tends to exacerbate things a bit. The only important thing is you make the connection between the human and the robot. I don't see why this is particularly important. So.
Here, I just sifted through the Silver Eyes for the mentions of the word robot, and this is the only quote that I found that could be relevant, describing, or it's Charlie describing the robots at Fredbear's Family Diner.
I think there were costumes. Charlie said, now still looking down at the ground. The animals weren't always robots. The bear and the bunny were costumes, and sometimes people wore them, and sometimes my father put it into one of his robots, and he could always tell which was which by the way they danced. Okay.
This is the closest thing I could find to any mention of whether or not the endo is removed from the suit when it's switched between modes. Just
I
from
mean,
a quick
regardless,
search.
this does seem to be Charlie drawing a line between the bear and the bunny being costumes and the others presumably not being costumes.
Well, Henry specifically warns his twins in the novels to not put their hands in any of the rabbit costumes, and they have a ton in the back because of the spring locks. It doesn't just say avoid the golden ones. He says like any of them, and they have a whole boatload of them.
Well, is that quote coming specifically from Fredbear's Family Diner, or is that from a Freddy's location?
It's from the flashback to when Charlie's thinking of her father at Fredbear's Family Diner.
Yeah. So that would beg the question of whether they had any rabbit costumes that weren't golden at Fredbear's.
Yeah, are they described? Thank you.
I can check.
Well, the closet is full of suits. So
I have ice cream now, by the way.
ice cream get.
She didn't bring a spoon. Excuse me 1 second.
Okay.
So interesting. I found the scene you were talking about, and he doesn't just say the rabbit costumes, he says the animal costumes.
Of which there are a boatload.
Yeah.
It's being very deliberately vague, but I find that vagueness very curious.
There's certainly a lot you can read into there.
Again, like I guess we went over that earlier. I do think William knew what he was doing when he put Dave, like Book William, knew what he was doing when he put the MCI kids into the robots. It's like he was giving them their happiest day. He knew they would live on in the robots before he put them in it. It's like he knows what they do and what they're designed to do. And so the possession of them was never some cosmic accident. It was something he did deliberately.
Okay. So, William put whoever.
Dave, I use Dave for. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm referring to like games and novels. And in the games you think is Henry. So I'm just saying whoever was responsible for stuffing the children into the suits in the games knew that this would result in possession.
Mm-hmm.
I think we agree there.
Yeah.
However, we have also agreed that possession is not unique to Springlock suits. Once again, I think it really comes down to a matter of you believing that non-Springlock animatronics would not be able to fit a human inside.
Well, can you find me an example of a non-spring? And I guess the puppet would be a non-Springlock animatronic, and it's somehow absorbed part of Charlie. But
I was gonna say, can you find an example of Springlock animatronic anywhere in the games? You don't think that exists. So well, I can't prove to you that a child could be stuffed into one.
I agree that no one could fit inside the puppet. It's really small, and also the Biddy Babs from sister locations. Like somehow they kill you, but there's no way a person can fit in there. But they do expose their faceplate, and like they're about to bite you and have the metal dig into you. So again, it's for the principle of letting metal to work, all you need is a way to connect an organic human to a metallic robot. And so you do that with metal in some fashion. Springlocks being the preferred high-tech version of that. But a knife still works. Teeth still work. You do have options about how to employ Dr. Bose's principle.
Just out of curiosity. You guys go ahead.
I'll go for it.
I don't have anything.
Just out of curiosity, an example, I don't know what your thoughts on this are, Ferret, but maybe an example of a suit that is definite, or an animatronic that's fitting something inside of it, without being a Springlock suit could be Lefty. I don't know what your thoughts on Lefty are, but Lefty definitely fits the puppet inside of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you think it's utilizing a Springlock mechanism.
Well, I believe that Lefty is actually powered by Yendo from Sister Location. There is a little bit of confusion because it's been brought to my attention that Rockstar Freddy, and I'm still figuring out the deal with the Rockstars. Also looks like them with the perfectly circular ears. And I just sprayed cat treats across the room. Go me.
Ooh.
But my current model is that the Yendo, again, a Funtime that's made of metal springs, is inside Lefty. And the Lefty's schematics is it's specifically designed to fuse with the puppet after capturing it, which is really weird. It also says, like, if once this fusion happens, that the behavior of the robot is no longer guaranteed, which I find incredibly dangerous. It's like, why, if you just want to burn up the puppet, why not just have it imprison the puppet, have it be in there when everything overheats? Why do this fusion thing? Why create this danger where a robot capable of devouring human souls might decide to do whatever it wants and might decide to eat you? It's like that's it doesn't make any sense unless you're Henry trying to put the two different pieces of his daughter back together, and this is of personal importance to you. So I do think that a Lefty would count as a springlock suit.
Alright, I was just curious if maybe we could find some common ground there.
These things are everywhere. They're hidden as the core of most of the story. That's my point here.
Do you understand my point in that I can't prove to you that a non Springlock animatronic could fit a child inside of it because you don't believe that exists?
Well, just find... Chuck E. Cheese would be a bad example because it's actually like just a fiberglass shell with like a moving hand and a moving mouth. The Chuck E. Cheese animatronics were never true robots in that fashion. They did not have autonomous thinking. They did not have autonomous movement capabilities. They were basically just like stuffed things with a couple of moving parts that would pretend to sing. It's like the Fazbear Entertainment's animatronics are fully autonomous. They could move, they could run. Foxy can sprint down the corridor. This is amazing tech. They did not have this in the 1980s, and they barely have it today. So, like, they looked like Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, but they were always something more. But anyway, I don't see how you can put a child into a robot that's not designed for it to fit inside. It's like try Johnny Five or something from Short Circuit. It's like guy's solid metal. It's like a Wally. Try to smash somebody into there. They're just going to bounce off it.
I mean, I'm trying to think if we actually get a clear view inside of an animatronic at all, like regardless of whether it's like debatably a Springlock suit. There's like the blueprint, but we don't really like from such a location, but we don't really have like an idea of like what's inside like negative space.
Well, I think the reason that Foxy's costume is ripped is so you can actually look inside him.
Oh,
I think that was a deliberate. Let's see if I can pull him up here. Hi.
yeah, Foxy might be a good example.
Hi, everybody. He's got an Endo 1 inside him if you look really carefully. Like you just things like that. The little details are hiding everywhere in FNAF.
I don't know if it's very hard to see. If I just look up FNAF 1 Foxy model, maybe there'll be like maybe one of the anniversary images showed it. Maybe like Help Wanted has a clearer one.
Yeah, I have so many files that it's hard for me to remember where I put stuff anymore. So
it genuinely, to me, does not look like. This is a great example of an image. I really hope this is an official image, but it looks like it. You can see all the way through parts of Foxy's chest. It's hard to see in the gray Discord background, but you can actually like look all the way through. It was on a white background before, and I could see white spots poking out in the stomach and in the like left shoulder area. So I would say that Foxy is a good way to say that. Like for the FNAF 1 animatronics, they're not completely full in the inside. There's a like greater outer like shell, and then there's the internal, very skinny endoskeleton. But that doesn't, like, there doesn't seem to be very much else taking up space. Like, I could probably just reach my hand in there and just wave it around a bit.
Yeah, I've got a picture that I'm going to try to
Mm.
upload here. It's Foxy from when we're repairing Foxy and Help Wanted.
I also have one queued up of repairing Freddy in case we
Okay.
wanted to take a look at that. So I feel like that might also be relevant here.
Well, in this case, you can actually see like some of the metal springs that we keep talking about are still wrapped into that robot somehow. Like this is like FNAF 1 Foxy, but it's mostly solid, but it still has springs in the construction. Again, it doesn't matter, the exact design of the spring suit doesn't matter, they just have to incorporate them somehow to make that connection. So like apparently even FNAF 1 Foxy can do it.
Here's Freddy from Help Wanted.
Yeah. Like,
There's a spring, I
It's
see a spring
certainly-
right there.
it's certainly busy. And again, let's remember that springs do not equate to spring locks, which also do not equate to the purpose of spring locks being fitting employees inside.
If you say so.
There's room. It's busy in there, but like if I was disposing of a body and this is the only place I could think to hide it, I could cram it in there if I tried. Like, not to brag, but I think I could make it work.
Well, it's other questions. Like if you're killing kids at a pizzeria, like you're the Punisher or somebody, it's like what do? You can throw them in the oven, you can put them in the grinder, you can serve them to people to eat, you can throw them out with the trash. Who would think of trying to stuff a kid into a robot? It sounds very time consuming, very unintuitive. It sounds quite frankly ridiculous. Who would even think of doing that? The police couldn't even conceive of that happening. That's why they didn't find the kids' bodies there. It's like, why always a specific type of death? If you're just trying to cause carnage, just throw a bomb into the place when it's full. Why stuff kids specifically into robots all the time? This stuffing has to be significant.
Yeah, I do think that it was meant in universe. Like, the intention was to experiment with Remnant. But again, we both agree that, like, really metal is the only thing required to make that happen, and, you know, the endoskeletons are, in fact, metal.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Glamrock Freddy in Security Breach has a quote where, like, he discovers a bunch of like endoskeletons and has like an existential crisis.
Yeah, I've seen that. I might actually have it here.
It seems to imply that like he considers the self to be contained within the endoskeleton, not in the outer costume.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
they're in the souls are definitely in the endoskeleton. The shell is just something you put over the top of it. But Glamrock Freddy and his friends are the same thing as all those bare endos that keep trying to eat people. Do I have the quote here?
There's a bit off topic, but I am sort of on the fence about whether I think that Glamrock Freddy is possessed. I'm hoping, like, that this is where it goes in the future. I'm hoping Glamrock Freddy is possessed by Gabriel, who I and many others believe to be the child who possessed regular Freddy, because I'm really hoping that Five Nights at Freddy's actually becomes about Freddy, and, like, Freddy is actually a lore-relevant character that's not overshadowed by Golden Freddy and the Puppet, and pretty much everyone else.
Well, you have to wonder, like, who would program Glamrock Freddy to burn down the pizzeria? That's a pretty big thing, and it's obvious he cares about the missing kids, and he does want Gregory to succeed. And it's like he's... all the other ones are trying to kill Gregory, but I think this is very curious because Gregory has already connected himself to Freddy and possibly shared remnant with him. That might be why Freddy isn't hostile. But yes, it does seem like Freddy has a moral code that is very out of place for anything related to Fazbear Entertainment. And especially curious is how Burn Trap is able to try to take over Glamrock Freddy in the end. It's like he just sees him on the monitor, puts his hand on the monitor, and suddenly he's trying to take over me. It's like, how is that possible? It's like, can you just psi attack or what at random? I think that an evil aspect of William is in a Springtrap, Burn Trap, uh, the other versions of Trap, and it's like yes, there's William, but it's only part of William. I think a positive part of William is in Freddy. Like, William Afton was the original Freddy. And a positive part of him is in Glamrock Freddy. But because, like, there are two pieces of William in conflict, this remnant link is what allows Burn Trap to try to take him over. I think that is William in there. Just everyone's used to William's like super evil, has no redeeming qualities, he's absolutely the worst. It's like you've only seen part of him. The other part of him has been here in plain sight the whole time as the main character.
So, now that we have these pictures of Freddy and Foxy, where we can directly see into their chest, to me, it looks like there's enough space to fit a child in there.
Well,
and I suppose to you, like, it doesn't.
I do see a spring in there, so you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, but there's really not much we can do when we're both looking at the same image, and I say, well, I think it looks like this. There's not really much we can go from there.
Well, Fredbear is a golden clone of Freddy, and that's like you see a picture of them in the survival logbook where Michael, who is drawn Freddy as the avatar of the restaurant, marking that Freddy is his character, then makes comics about blowing up or locking up something that looks like Freddy. All he uses is red ink, so you can't tell color, but I'm certain that's actually Fredbear, that his ire is directed towards. A golden knockoff of his own character that he got from William. So Michael loves Freddy, Michael hates Fredbear. Because Fredbear is just a cheap imitation. And, like, being the same design, Fredbear is a springsuit. Freddy is also a springsuit. Again, the literal head of Freddy Fazbear is wearable in the Fazbear Fright novels, and the same head that you see a little Michael wearing in a Take Cake to the Children, a larger version is the MCI head that the puppet puts on one of the kids. It's like the hat size is different, but let's see if I can pull it up. The hat size is different, but it's the same color and overall make. So yeah, the actual animatronic heads are wearable, which I think would only be possible if they were designed that way, i.e. springlock suit heads.
So, something I'm going to switch topics a little bit, because I think we've sort of reached a terminal point here. Something I'm genuinely shocked that you didn't put on your list of talking points for this debate was the unused fast fact from FNAF AR. Because
that William made the original animatronics and they were springlock suits?
In the in previous debates, you've treated that like a smoking gun, so I thought that was going to be like point number one in your list. So I have my response to that in the miscellaneous section.
I could probably bring that up. Hold on. Fast facts.
I also have it written down. The original animatronics featured spring-lock suits that had to be hand-cranked to allow them to be worn safely by employees. That's what it says.
Here, I've got the printout here.
Yep.
The original featured swing suits that had to be hand cranked to allow them to be safely worn by employees. Again, this is the reason why I think Spring Bonnie was in suit mode when William jumped into him in FNAF 3, because it would take forever to do that conversion, but he was able to jump in instantly. The famous William Afton is the man responsible for the creation of the animatronics we all know and love. I agree with that. I think the first restaurant was 1972's Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, which then became the struggling restaurant after a take cake to the children marred its reputation. That's diverging from the. That's another whole discussion that I'm sure you're going to want to have at some point in the future.
And have also had many times in the past. So let me read my response that I wrote here.
Okay.
I do not agree with you. I paraphrased your point. The unused fact from AR proved that the original animatronics were spring-lock suits, and the original animatronics were Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Therefore, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are spring-lock suits. Paraphrased. I do not agree with you on who the original animatronics are. I believe that the original animatronics are Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. One could interpret this in a number of ways, actually. The most common of which is that it's confirming the ones we know to be spring-lock suits, which are Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, are the original animatronics. Certainly, these interpretations all fit the text of the fast fact itself equally well. So the fast fact itself is not a, quote, one-shot kill, as you've described in the past. Besides, here's what the fast fact says exactly. The original animatronics featured spring-lock suits that had to be hand-cranked to allow them to be worn safely by employees. The key word here is featured, not were. If they said they were spring-lock suits, I'd see your point. But it says they featured spring-lock suits, implying that there were spring-lock suits among them, but the entire group does not entirely consist of them.
Couldn't it mean that the later ones wouldn't have to be hand-cranked?
If I say that a comedy show features jokes about nuns, you'd assume that there was a few jokes about nuns in there, but you wouldn't assume it was 100% nun jokes all the time. Which is the second worst analogy I've used in this debate. I'm saying that, like, there is a group known as the original animatronics. This group, known as the original animatronics, featured spring-lock suits. But the word featured does not mean entirely consists of.
Well, the original thing people keep saying, like, Phone Guy said there were only two. Phone Guy's original quote was, right now we have two special suits. He never said we only had two or ever planned to have two. In fact, the statement says, like, you plan to have more than that. And I have to wonder, like, why once the multiple string-lock failure happened at the sister location, which would be Fredbear's Family Diner in 1983, why retire all the classic suits from Freddy's? It's like he's like admitting, like, okay, now that we know that the spring-lock suits are dangerous, all these robots that we have to be retired now. It's like, wouldn't this suggest that they were spring-lock suits too?
Well, I'm sorry, could you go through that argument again? I think I got lost.
Okay, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie are stationed at Fredbear's Family Diner in 1983. Phone Guy is the one responsible for the new and improved Freddy's, i.e. the FNAF 2 building, which was opened twice in my timeline, first in summer 1983 and then again in November 1987. So, sure. I believe the FNAF 3 call is Phone Guy recording in 1983 about something that just happened at Fredbear's. So at Fredbear's, they have the multiple simultaneous spring-lock failure incident. So as Phone Guy is going, oh crap, the spring-lock suits are no longer safe, so he's retiring all the classic animatronics at Freddy's. I mean, if Fredbear and Spring Bonnie are already over there, you got two accounted for. So how many more are there? It sounds like you got a bunch, and they're Freddy and all of his friends.
Oh, okay. So you're saying Fredbear's have...
Why would Phone Guy care about spring-lock suits failing at Fredbear's if he had none of his own to worry about?
You're saying Fredbear's has Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, Freddy's has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, but doesn't have Fredbear and Spring Bonnie.
I do think there was a version of Fredbear stationed there also. And there was certainly a second one, the bare front one, but okay.
that's what we agree on. Then we agree that at the very least there is a Fredbear at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you, and I agree with your point. Freddy's does have springlock suits. I think Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, and it also has non-springlock animatronics that are not retired.
Well, then how do the springsuit? How do the heads of Freddy and his friends fit on the kids?
That is tying back to an entirely different question of like whether kids would be able to fit inside of the springlock animatronics.
I think that
So
you would find a solid metal skull in most non-springlock suit animatronics.
can I say that we've wrapped up the discussion, like the implications of phone guys call, because you're moving on to an entirely separate topic.
All right.
Um, I, which I mean, I think we've also like reached the end of like we're literally just looking at these two pictures of Freddy and Foxy in the VR mini games, and I think that the like the animatronic shells, the suits, whatever, look empty enough to shove child organs inside, along with an endoskeleton being in there, and you just simply don't agree.
I'm wondering
Based
why
on
both those pictures have springs in them. Why? What do the springs even do when they're wrapped around Foxy's head like a snake like that?
That does not seem relevant to the question of whether there is enough space for a child to fit in there.
All right.
Um,
Well, it seems like a solid metal head to me, so I'm not sure how you put a kid in there.
I mean, I don't necessarily like. I'm gonna look at the FNAF 1 newspapers again because
All right.
it said that the blood and mucus was coming from the head, or just like generally the body. But if it's
Well, it was the facial area.
unspecified,
It was the facial area.
If I recall correctly off the top of my head, I think it was the eyes and mouth. I could be way off, though.
It's more evidence that it was open in 1983 also because Bonnie had an intact face back then, where he just has like his upper face is missing in 1987. Over the passage of years, they've become withered, but while they were on stage, they looked like new animatronics, at least until the blood and mucus started coming out.
Hmm. Yeah, around the eyes and mouth of the mascot. Okay, so the answer of how do you fit a child into those animatronic heads is not very well, because there is a lot of blood and mucus coming out. And, you know, I don't believe that there's any reason to think there's like the kids are preserved in there in any capacity. I don't think that their flesh is alive. Certainly.
Well, they're still able to eat and breathe, and like Bonnie breathed on Charlie after being entombed for like a decade, and he still had horrible, rancid, wet breath. So
Yeah,
something's going on.
we went over the eating thing before, but I forgot to mention the breathing thing. I think that that's just like a ghost thing. Like it doesn't jump out to me as like, oh, the kids still need to have functioning lungs and like esophagi running up through the animatronics like mouth. I think it's more like, hey, spooky ghosts able to breathe.
Well, there are multiple mentions of animatronics breathing in the Fazbear Frights novel also. Like, Lonely Freddy did a lot of breathing. And even in, like, the Gumdrop Angel, the narrator even makes a point of noticing, like, hey, those robots are helping blow out the candles. Like, how are they doing that? Like, when the author makes a point of highlighting something, it's usually there for a reason.
Well, if I recall correctly, most of the references to breathing in Lonely Freddy come after Alec has entered the Lonely Freddy robot, and I think it's very unlikely that he was stuffed into that.
Yeah, it was a complete consciousness transfer. So the robot had the capacity to breathe before his soul got transferred into it.
Do you think that there are actual human lungs inside?
Well, if they're spring-lock suits that uh, wouldn't completely pulverize anything organic inside them, it's like I think you might have semi-functional lungs in there.
Is Lonely Freddy a springlock suit?
I don't think Lonely Freddy's a spring-lock suit. He's too small. That does seem like a different form of possession, like hypnotizing somebody and then learning all about them, then making that swap. I'm not exactly sure how that's being accomplished, but it definitely makes the point that consciousness transfer and soul transfer is happening.
Yeah, I think Nine's point was that, like most, if not all, of the references to Lonely Freddy being able to breathe were after the like consciousness transfer, and even then, there's like implied to be some consciousness within the Lonely Freddy trying to get out in Alec's body. So it's more about like Lonely Freddy would actually be a good example of being able to breathe because there's a consciousness in there. Uh, like the same way that like they're like you know Alec is having reactions to stuff even though there are no synapses firing in his brain because he's not in his brain anymore. Um, like it's uh, they they can breathe because ghosts, really.
Well, that seems like kind of a catch-all to blame everything on being ghosts. I think there's more science fiction work than fantasy. I do, in my own catalog, the breathing of the various animatronics, which is reiterated in the Faster Frights books, is more evidence of them having an organic component. Again, it piles on top of Chica being able to eat pizza, Roxanne being able to actually smell. It's like these are more than mere robots. They also have an organic component. I'm taking this as more evidence on top of that. And my voice is getting scratchy again.
Understandable.
Ugh.
I do believe I've given explanations individually for how the smelling and eating works, and now another individual explanation for breathing. But I do not have one uniform theory that ties all of those things together. I will admit that. I think it. Okay, I can see how it is a catch-all from your perspective, and I can see why you lean more sci-fi in your theory, given like pretty much all of Sister Location, really.
Well, also the Fazbear, Fazbear Mad Science kits from He Told Me Everything.
Yeah.
There's a arcade machine that says Mad Science with Scrap Trap and in a security breach. There's the Dreadbear DLC where we're literally putting together Dreadbear's brain as if they're Frankenstein. It's like the Mad Science angle has been reiterated.
Yeah, but I personally don't. I think that was the direction that Scott took it later in the timeline. Actually, I think we had Scott on record in the interview with Daco saying, like he thinks he went a little too hard in the science fiction direction of this location, but like that wasn't really a presence in the beginning of the series.
I maintain that the theory of living metal is part of FNAF 1 and has been the core of it from the beginning. So, Night 5, Autobiography of Yogi, Chapter 8, I'm thinking that's what's powering all this.
And I maintain that like even that is more magic and mystical, like mysticism.
It's pseudoscience in this world, but it definitely seems to work in FNAF's world. Again, it's about the core thing are what mechanics work in the universe this guy's created to tell the story he wants to create. This is why you have Springtrap looks like a perfect fusion of flesh and metal, because in this world, both of them are living materials, and you can make one being out of both of those things. And that's core to the entire soul transferring into robot mechanic. Yeah, yes, Nine? Hello? It's a ghost,
Uh-oh. I'm pulling up the interview transcript.
Okay.
Just to make sure that I have this right.
I want to mess with some emotes because I can. That's what I usually do to people on Twitch.
Yeah. You can spam your own chat and no one's going to stop you. Again, my computer's acting really slow. I'm using my laptop right now, and I usually don't put the stress of a microphone and headphones and just pull on it.
Is there anything in particular that you're looking for that I could maybe try to see if I could pull up faster?
So, in talking about sister location specifically, Scott says, I always kind of tend to lean sci-fi, which has actually gotten me in trouble a couple times with this franchise. Anytime I try to lean sci-fi, which is my natural inclination, you know, people are like, hey, whoa, 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 this is a horror story. And then I have to somehow try to guide it back, you know. And rightfully so. The first game is a horror movie. It's not sci-fi.
Taking it with a grain of salt, but
Why?
because I think it's been science fiction from the beginning. I guess the last part was
me,
rather
that's
direct.
not a reason why. That's not a reason why you should take Scott with a grain of salt because you disagree with him. He said that the first game is more horror themed, not sci-fi themed.
And getting there, he also mentioned that Norton shut up. He also mentioned science fiction several different times and mentioned his love of the genre and so forth. And that's... I'm thinking the core of FNAF is a science fiction story that's been reiterated on, and just saying it's magical, it's puppet magic, ooh, she puts the souls into the suits. It's like, so how did all these other kids get possessed Springlock suits when the puppet wasn't around? It's like there's a hole in that theory. Good science fiction is at least believable, even if not 100% scientifically accurate. And the theory of living metal seems to power most of this stuff.
The argument that the puppet doesn't help with all the possessions only debunks the idea that the puppet helps with all the possessions. It does not debunk the idea that there wasn't much sci-fi in the first FNAF game. I would say primary evidence for the first FNAF game not being sci-fi is Scott telling us that directly.
All right.
That's just me.
He also says things like the games weren't 100% planned in advance, but that's kind of nebulous. Like, it doesn't say what percentage it actually was. Like, I see detailed things in the FNAF 1 posters that suggest a well-formed timeline and Shadow Freddy's origin story from the first game onward. It's like that statement could literally be true if he changed one pixel of one child poster at some point during the series and left 99.9999% of it intact. It's like I didn't plan 100% in advance. It's like that statement really doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't tell us what percentage was planned. And I think there was a massive amount of pre-planning, which that statement does not debunk the possibility of pre-planning. It just, on the surface, seems to suggest there wasn't much, and I disagree with that.
True. one thing that I've also heard but can't find a source for, which annoys me, is I think there's an interview somewhere after FNAF 2 where Scott says that the puppet was actually a cut animatronic from the first game. I don't remember where that was though, and I haven't been able to find it. I might just be misremembering what someone said, or
Yeah.
maybe they misremembered from
She's
someone
been a
else.
big character from the beginning, so.
But so I agree with you that we don't know how much was planned out. Maybe um, uh, Scott was thinking when he was making FNAF 1, like, man, it'd be cool if the protagonist of this game was like an android who died as a child and then got like rebuilt as a robot. He might have been thinking that, but uh, like he was just like, oh, that's too much for this one game. I'll just make this one game. Um,
Mm.
so I agree with you there. However, do you think the lore of the first game was solvable before the second game came out?
It's 4 games, one story. I do think FNAF 4 makes significant callbacks to FNAF 1, specifically Shadow Freddy, the other Golden Bear ghost, saying, "It's me" in FNAF 1, which answers the questions FNAF 4: was it me, or was it me? I do think you need to have the first 4 games put together to solve the complete story, but the seeds of that are definitely present in FNAF 1.
So your answer is no, the FNAF 1 was not solvable when FNAF 1 came out.
I don't think FNAF 1 was fully solvable when it came out, now.
Okay.
But we could learn a
Um
lot from it.
yeah. I would personally disagree. I Do you buy what Scott says about FNAF 1 being planned to be his last game ever?
Well, a smart artist plans to make a standalone product that has the potential for expansion. FNAF 1 definitely seems like a complete product, but I definitely see an extended universe in the posters, etc., in place. It's like I'm sure he had a backup plan just in case it happened to go viral, which was good because it did. Um, uh, ah, gosh. What was the exact direct question again?
Um, do you think that FNAF 1 was actually planned to be Scott's last game?
He says that was the case. I think he planned for the possibility that there would be more. I definitely see that with the detailed timeline from the posters. So it's not a false statement, but it doesn't also tell us everything.
Mm.
A lot of Scott's statements are, this is a mystery author. He's not going to give away the answers to his mysteries easily. He tells us things that we think mean one thing that actually could mean another. It's like it leaves us to try to sort it out. I think that we should analyze whatever he says with a fine-tooth comb so that we know exactly what is being said instead of what we think is being said. Because that's like number one cause of death among theorists is like wishful thinking. It's like it's hearing what you want to hear instead of what actually is.
Yeah, I'm also definitely anti hearing what you want to hear instead of what it actually is. Um, I mean, there's really no way to self reflect and say, like, oh, but I'm just seeing, like, what I want to see.
I've
Like, that's
refined these
very hard
theories
to
over
do.
a decade, Barry, and I've had to correct myself several times with new evidence. But also, new evidence that came out has also reinforced the theories I've had. I've been refining them this whole time. I'm not just in a delusional state about this stuff. There is a consistent pattern.
Well, it's not about like just creating theories out of thin air. It's about like interpreting the right evidence the wrong way, where evidence in this case is like the word of Scott. Um, like people can interpret it in different ways. Like I interpret something one way, you interpret it a different way, but I can't just look into myself and see that my interpretation is inherently wrong. I have to like look in other places. Um,
I've learned everything I can about FNAF along the way.
yeah, so have I.
I'm sure with whoever was willing to listen.
Yeah. So have where this, like, I'm thinking of this debate like a tree that has like super long branches, and I'm trying to trace myself back to the tree. Where this started was you asserting that like Bonnie and Chica can breathe, so therefore the flesh must be alive, which is a very sci-fi explanation for a game that Scott says isn't sci-fi.
Well, who
and I
would program
believe
the
him.
robots specifically to have rancid breath, like they were rotting inside? That doesn't sound like a standard design feature.
I don't think that I wasn't asserting that the robots were programmed to have rancid breath at any point in this debate. Um, what I'm asserting is that the breathing is simply caused by like ghosts or consciousness.
All
It
right.
is a sign of the robots being haunted, and it's something that I'm gonna say it, it's something that I don't think needs to make sense in reality, because it's not in reality. It's in a horror game.
It only has to make sense in the logic of the universe it's in. And some other rules are
Yeah.
different, but I do think that FNAF is solvable, and if Scott has said that the lore can be solved in a satisfying way, at least 1 through 4. And all the later games I've seen have simply clarified elements from 1 through 4.
Hmm.
As well as add some to the story, but
Yeah. Um, Let me scroll through my preparation document to see if there's like to see what the next uh,
right?
point is that
Might
I.
be time to move on to the next point. I feel like we've also hit a brick wall here.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of losing track, so let's what is the next item of discussion for today, moderator man?
Let's see. 'Cause I think Spook is pulling up.
But we could talk about
Ah.
You're the Band.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah.
The horrible head of Freddy Fazbear that a kid gets possessed after putting on, that is then used to suck the ghost back out of him later. That all of that springs springlock suit connection and remnant transfer to me.
Mm.
When I read that point, not only had I not read You're the Band, and I'm going to be honest, I still haven't, but Casey had not yet purchased the 12th Fazbear Frights book,
Okay.
so I couldn't even read it.
Okay, I've been telling you for years now that the Fazbear Fright stories were going to be important, specifically to the debates too.
Yes.
But okay.
And I read a summary of You're the Band in preparation.
Okay.
I read a summary of all the Fright stories you mentioned, which I know that they don't provide all the minutia, but if there's anything very specific that you want to present, then you can very much do that, and I won't stop you. What I did do is I searched all of Fazbear Frights 12 for the words spring, lock, and spring lock. And there is no mention of spring locks or spring lock suits in the entire book, which means there must be, in order for your the band supporting
Mm-hmm.
the idea that like Freddy is a spring lock suit to make sense,
Mm-hmm.
there needs to be some other way of deducing that it can't be a non-spring lock.
Why is the Freddy Fazbear wearable, and how do you get contract ghost disease by wearing it?
This is another instance of the debate circling back to what I now believe is the root of the issue. Can a human and or child fit in a springlock suit part without an endoskeleton inside of it. And I think there are, like, actually, I don't. Obviously, since I haven't read the story, I don't know if there's like mentioned to be any scars or any blood on the kid that wears the Freddy mask.
I don't think so.
So, how do you think the connection was made if the springlocks weren't digging into him?
Well, it could be under the hair. He mentioned that the head was heavier than he thought. I do think Scott tries to avoid graphically showing blood, at least visually. So, like things like the MCI kids having synthetic flesh, it's like it's gory, but it doesn't actually hurt them that much. And a lot of stuff's there to, I guess, reduce the impact of the true horror of what's happening, which only leaves more horror for you to discover when you dive into it. But it doesn't tell us that he wasn't poked by something metal when he put the head on. Sometimes a mission, what details are omitted are important too.
I guess is
it certainly messed him up.
I don't remember how well you remember the scene of like trying to pull the mask off. Was it particularly hard to pull the mask off? Like, did it seem like there was something stuck in there?
He had to wait until the crescendo of the song they were playing, and then like Mike. Again, doesn't specify which Mike it is. Mike Schmidt, Michael Afton, left to our interpretation. But Mike had to jump up, and while the puppeteer Nightmarian was strangling the boy's mother, Mike put the head on it. The eyes started to glow when he put the head on, and he took the head back off, and that removed the presence of what was in the kid. And then Freddy Fazbear, the real robot, put on that very same head and walked on the stage and started singing along just like the kid was. So that was the actual head of Freddy Fazbear.
If there was any like springlock or mechanical connection in the back of the head under the hair, then I imagine it wouldn't be super easy to pull the head off because it's literally digging into the kid's head. So it's a matter to me right now of how easy it was to get the head off, like force-wise.
Not particularly specified, but
yeah.
But then again, I think Mike is probably an android too, so it probably wasn't too much of trouble for him.
Yeah,
He was somewhat able to sense where the head was when they went out into the country, so that's again, the story does not say how they accomplished that, but I'm very suspicious he sensed it.
Yeah.
There's a lot the stories don't say that we have to fill in the blanks for, and I think there's a vast amount of stuff that isn't stated. That's why I've made all these videos and debates over all this time. It's a mystery. It's an epic mystery that we need to figure out. And I see it all as like a series of puzzle pieces, and like a jigsaw puzzle. It's like, when you see several pieces that fit together and show you more of a coherent picture, you're on the right track. And that's what I've been doing all this time, taking more of these seemingly random lore bits, trying different things until they fit together, and then expanding on there.
Yeah, that's pretty much what everybody in the theory community is doing. It's just we disagree on what the picture is going to look like in the end.
Well, I think the springsuits were designed from the beginning to help the Afton family achieve robotic immortality. I think that after the evil corporation Fazbear Entertainment took it over, they turned Williams' creations into soul-harvesting monsters for profit. And ever since then, William and Michael have been sneaking back into Fazbear Entertainment with fake names to both rescue their family members from the sister location, and also to try to sabotage the operation. Like, why would William send his son into the sister location facility risking life and limb when, if he was the CEO, if he was the master behind everything, he could just use a stroke of a pen and do that? Because it was Henry's company. And Henry took over. That's why Fazbear Entertainment, Henry's company, is paying all the bills. William made the robots, but Henry warped them into monsters. That was the Mega Man analogy. Like you have two mad scientists. You have
Yeah.
Dr. Light, who makes the awesome robots. You have Dr. Wily, who corrupts Dr. Light's robots. That was Mega Man 1. I think Henry is Dr. Wily. In the games. Again, not in the Mirror Universe novels, where it's reversed.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't have like intimate knowledge of the specific details in You're the Band, but I personally, I just would need a sign that some like physical connection was made. I,
But I don't think there is evidence of that happening in You're the Band.
Yeah, and I think that the like I think the claim that there was requires proof. But
Still,
something just occurred to me. I like the way that I'm seeing these details form together in my head. It seems less analogous to stuffing, and more analogous to in Curse of Dreadbear, when we see the very spooky, ghostly Vanny mask, and we put it on, and we can hear like a like if we're holding a plushie, we can hear a conversation going on. Like that seems more what it's like to me, as opposed to, you know, stuffing a kid into a suit head first.
all right.
And
Well,
if that's the case, then it certainly wouldn't have anything to do with the spring locks, unless you think that the strange Vanny map in VR Help Wanted contains spring locks on it.
I'm not exactly sure. It does seem like that's more of like an actual fabric costume than a traditional springlock suit. I'm still figuring out what the deal with Vanny and Glitchtrap are. But I do think that You're the Band is specifically designed to show us that the function of that Freddy Fazbear's head is wearable, and then way I can see that happening is if he's a springlock suit, which again would stack with all these other details about Dave deliberately putting kids into the plastic animatronics knowing what would happen to them, the puppet putting the springsuit heads, once again, onto the MCI kids knowing what happened to them, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you guys want to talk about? Should we ask the audience for questions, or
we could ask for questions. I think the only major point that we haven't touched upon yet would be the fourth point from Ferret's list of talking points, which would be that the spring suits inherently have a hidden greater purpose.
Well,
Right.
I think we covered that. It's like the secret of Baby's design that William didn't want Phasma Entertainment to know.
Well, we covered
we
what
briefly
the greater purpose is, but why or what inherently hints towards the fact that they have that greater purpose is maybe a topic for discussion.
Because your first point in the list of talking points in support of a greater purpose was simply put, they're incredibly dangerous.
Well, I don't think that's the order of it, but this was like why make springlock suits at all? They're for the stated design of just being a suit that can double as an animatronic in a suit. It's still a bad design. Why not make an exoskeleton? Like an Iron Man style exoskeleton could do everything that the springlock suits are reported to do. It's like you can put in robot mode, you can put a human inside the thing, have them do amazing stuff. It's like, and there's absolutely no chance of crushing death from a spring lock failure. It's a solid state thing. It's like Tony Stark isn't stupid. He's not going to crush himself and set his own stuff. But the spring lock suit, we've seen all the generations in which spring lock suits have been employed. Something about this design was integral to what the Afton family was trying to achieve, even though it seemed insane to everyone else. These people were mad scientists. And the only purpose I can see is trying to put some of their souls inside robots deliberately as backup copies. That's the only thing.
It's interesting.
Okay.
It's interesting to me that you you say like, why are they spending like so much money on this like dangerous idea? Like there are a lot of cheaper alternatives, and one of the alternatives you listed was just Iron Man, which is not cheap by any means.
No, but it's cheaper than what they have. They have real working transformers. This is impossible technology versus simply really, really high tech stuff.
Well, do you have a source on how expensive spring lock suits would be to build in real life?
How do you think you could build a robot whose metal guts could be stretched to the outside of their frame that could still function fully normally with full range of movement on your own? Do you think anybody in this planet could make something like that? Because this is a literal 80s transformer. That's magical tech. I don't see how someone could ever build something like that, but they have them. It's certainly more complex than a simple solid-state exoskeleton, even one that Tony Stark made. It's like, yes, that's awesome tech, but it's simpler than what the Aftons are building. So I have to ask the question, why are the spring locks reused all the time? What are they trying to accomplish with this seemingly terrible design?
The spring locks are wound with a crank, and they move parts in the inside of the costume to different parts of the inside of the costume.
And yet somehow the robot is still fully mobile.
I don't think that's more complicated than Transformers or Iron Man, personally. There's not really like an objective metric we can measure for how complicated something is.
Well,
this is the first time
I can't conceive how something like that could be built. And I don't think the DARPA government organization could do that either. That seems mindlessly complex.
I'll read my actual response. In response to "they're incredibly dangerous," I say yes, but dangerous working conditions exist in the real world, and the spring locks are satirizing them. Now, of course, this reading and your reading are not mutually exclusive. The fact that the spring lock suits being dangerous is a source of many jokes in the series does not mean that it cannot indicate some deeper meaning behind the suits. However, the jokes provide an out-of-universe reason why they would be turned up to 11 on the danger level, and in-universe, they make as much sense as dangerous working conditions in our actual universe. So there's no in-universe or out-of-universe aspects of their danger that are lacking an explanation. FNAF 1's job is dangerous, and one of the phone guy's many roles is to play up that danger as a joke. This joke naturally escalates until it reaches a ridiculous point, as running jokes tend to do.
I do agree that an evil corporation is a recurring theme over the whole series. So, yes, forcing people to start the work week on Sunday, forcing them to work 14-hour shifts, and according to the messages from Security Breach, there's definitely a lot of evil corporate stuff happening. And the springlock suits forcing people to wear something horrible like the springlock suits is there. It just seems like this, for a company that is concerned with liability, which in FNAF 6 they definitely are. You don't want excess liability. You're trying to mitigate that to grow your place. Why maintain the seemingly unnecessary element of the spring locks? Unless there was some other reason for them. and I've shown the reason. It's like they are putting parts of people's souls into robots deliberately.
I mean, this technology does not exist in real life. I think we could agree there.
Yeah, the theory of living metal is probably pseudoscience.
So, like, we can't tell how profitable Fazbear Entertainment thought they were at the time, and again, like, there's sort of an issue where, like, a smaller difference in our timeline leads to a bigger difference in our timeline, um, because you're questioning, like, why would they like obviously realize how dangerous these suits are and then keep reusing them over and over, and keep building these death traps. And that's a valid question if the spring suits are in fact littered throughout the like century-long timeline of FNAF at this point. But I personally don't think that they are. Like, the history of spring suits, if you ask me, is that they were tried, lasted maybe a few months, and then were retired when people realized how dangerous and profitable they were. That's what I think the history of them is. So I don't really need to ask why would they keep building them. Like, why would they think that that was a good idea in the first place is a good question. But like, clearly they were proven wrong. So I don't really think it matters that much why they would think it was a good idea in the first place. And then, of course, you majorly disagree pretty much everything I just said. So, smaller gap in our timeline, bigger gap in our timeline.
There's a lot of evidence for Freddy bringing a spring suit, though. The wearable heads, the puppet putting the heads on people, Dave putting someone inside Freddy, you're the band, someone getting possessed by wearing the head of Freddy Fazbear. You have Fredbear as a golden knockoff of Freddy, and Fredbear is a springlock suit, and is described in the Silver Eyes as a yellow Freddy Fazbear suit. You have animatronics that, for all the world, behave like they're human beings in multiple places, especially Security Breach. And they do things that are counterproductive to what the company wants. Monty is out there killing staff bots for amusement in his spare time. It's like, I don't think they programmed him to do that. I don't think they programmed Chica to eat cheap pizza and garbage until she has to throw them up. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be a crowd pleaser. But they're still doing that because that's part of their personality traits / flaws. It's like there are human souls in these robots, and the ability to heal, that's something we haven't covered yet. Okay, like, Theory of Living Metal states that metal is able to heal. Well, you have several cases, especially in Security Breach, where the animatronics have been taken massive damage. They are KO'd, they're on the ground, they're not moving. We can take parts of them off, and then they get up again. It's like, who repaired you? How did you get up again? Why are you still alive? And we see this in the Silver Eyes also, when Charlie does a wall jump to get the overhead electrical cable, and then uses it to fry Chica's circuitry. It's like, ah! So Chica's down for the count. She's no longer moving, and she should be dead. It's like, there's nobody to repair her here. She should just sit there as an inanimate lump of metal and fur forever. And yet, minutes later, she's up, and she's chasing them again. It's like, how did you do that? How do any of these things still operate unless they have a healing factor? Which is directly one of the direct observations of Dr. Bose in Chapter 8. Metal can heal itself, at least on a micro level. Then you make it science fiction by bumping it up to a macro level. It's like, how do these robots have the ability to repair themselves if they're not living material that is healing?
In the two examples you gave, they are examples of animatronics being deactivated through force.
Yeah.
and then reactivating without anyone reactivating.
Without any explanation as to how they're doing it.
Could it be ghosts?
I think that with all the plying that went into FNAF, blaming everything on like Ghost did it is a little disingenuous. But also, if it were ghosts, why were they KO'd in the first place? They should just remain possessed. They're already possessed. They should remain conscious. Why can't the ghosts manipulate their dead frames and go, oh, I'm still alive, holy shit? It's like, why were they ever on the ground to begin with?
I mean, if you like, you know, my desktop computer is plugged into the wall, right? If the power goes out for a second, my computer will completely shut off,
Mm-hmm.
and then when the power restores, the computer isn't just like instantly back up and running again exactly how it was. It takes like a minute at least to boot up.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff's loading. I don't exactly know what's going on in there because I'm not a computer scientist, nor am I a computer. But like there's still stuff that is working internally to make it turn on.
Okay, and you think it
that
was?
takes some time.
And you think it was just a temporary? They got temporarily rebooted, and now they're back up.
Yeah.
But how is Chica able to operate when her electronics should be fried? It's like you'd think that would be really hard to get back up from that one.
I mean, there's been a long history, like, shocking animatronics. Ever since Sister Location, I think every FNAF game has had a mechanic where you electrify an animatronic.
And the question remains: how are they not being hurt by that?
I mean, like, there's
Like why does only 3 shocks? Why how can they take 3 shots without taking permanent damage? It's like you think you'd get more with every single one. Sorry, go on.
I mean, I can't really make a comparison to the real world. Like, I'm not that knowledgeable. What can like destroy computers permanently? Like what amounts of electricity and like what amounts of electricity are given in the FNAF game?
Lightning. Basically,
But
she
I
got
mean,
struck by lightning. It's like sparking electricity. Like yeah. That's it takes much less than that to mess my machine up. That's what I know.
if we're being told by the narrative that that's not shutting the animatronics off permanently,
Mm-hmm.
then I just like take it as word that that's not enough electricity to shut off the animatronics.
How about Chica's head being
Um,
crushed in a giant metal vice and security breach?
uh, what do you mean?
I mean, like her head
The
gets
trash
crushed by the
compactor.
trash compactor and security breach, and you actually see her eyes bug out as her skull is systematically crushed. It's like that's gonna take it's
Yeah.
gonna take a lot to walk away from that one, and yet she's still up again.
Hmm.
I mean, if you're not a robot, then sure. Like we know, like as humans, our brains are kept in our heads,
Mhm.
and without our brains, we're pretty much useless. Um, but I mean, I can very much imagine that like cutting off a robot's head wouldn't completely stop it. Um, unless there's like actual brains located within the head.
No, they do have chips, like you mentioned that before. Like there was a personality chip that Chica had.
We don't know where though.
No, I think Baby had hers like on
Um,
the side of the head. Like there was that hatch that opened.
Well, we're never entirely explained what that chip is.
Mm-mm.
mm,
It's left vague.
Well, anyway, that's the healing factor, which would be a direct tie-in to Dr. Bose's theory of living metal. That metal is living material that can heal itself. It might not be real in this world, but it definitely seems real in the world of FNAF.
Hmm.
now, let's. I'm just gonna assume for right now that you are right about every instance of animatronic that you solve. How can you use that to prove that any given animatronic in FNAF is a spring-lock suit specifically?
You broke up a little bit. Can you say that again?
Um, well, assuming that you're right about every instance of healing in FNAF, can you use that to prove that any given animatronic in FNAF is a spring-lock suit?
Well, I imagine things like the puppet that are non-spring-lock suits probably could still heal. Again, it's the principle of living metal, which can be implemented in various ways. Like the puppet is too small, no one can fit inside it, but still can probably dig into someone with its claws or something to make that connection. Somehow it was able to absorb Charlie's remnant, and not exactly specified how that happened, but the I think that might be mutually exclusive, or
Mm.
just a minute. I not a perfect sleep either. So what was the question again?
Can you use the healing theory to given animatronic in FNAF is a springlock suit?
I don't think healing would directly equate to a springlock suit. Their non-springlock suits
Alright.
would still be able to heal, but it still works on the principle of the theory of living metal, which
Yeah,
is
alright.
what
So
powers the
there's
springsuit.
really there's not much need to dwell on that tonight. Um, I am scrolling through this document to see what else there is to cover. Um, we already talked about the consequences of the springlock failure, being like what happened. I don't know if Ferret gave a theory as to like what actually happened. Let me pull up the phone guy description of it.
I'm still deciphering the multiple simultaneous springlock failure. I think that one of the victims might have been Michael's mother,
Uh,
and become the secondary hit on
honestly,
Michael. That's my theory, but I don't have an explicit way to prove that right now.
I'm still struggling with it too. I don't know if you heard of the Paradox.
You've mentioned it a lot with maximum style, I might add.
Ah, thank you. Um,
This was the
yeah.
this was about how Phone Guy could announce the sealing of the secret rooms after his death. That was the thing.
No, that's the safe room paradox.
Okay.
What the paradox is I won't go into it now, but essentially it is four premises that lead to a conclusion, and I believe that the four premises are each individually basically indisputable. Like I can't see myself budging on them because I think they're just so strong. But if all four of them are true, then we run into a problem because the conclusion would then be that the FNAF One restaurant in 1983 is the sister location to itself, and there is no actual sister location.
Well, Fredbear's was open in
Which is
1983. That's when the cartoon came out.
yeah. But like everything that we know happened between those two restaurants would all have to happen in one restaurant. Like the timeline just folds in on itself, and I've been struggling with that for like a year and a half now, um, and I might just pretty much ignore it. Just be like, yeah, sure. There's
Well,
a hole here. I'm just gonna
my
use that later.
explanation for that is it's the summer paradox. It's that the nights 2 through 6 in FNAF 2 were recorded in real time by Phone Guy for Michael, but night 1 was a tape replayed from summer 1983. That's my explanation. He talks about this. This is a reopening of a vintage restaurant, but Phone Guy talks about due to the quirky modern architecture, there are no doors for you to close. And it's like, wait a minute, these two things don't connect. And then it's like there's an open sister location, but Fredbear has been 1983 has been closed for years, and it's like the Phone Guy then talks in FNAF 3 about an open sister location, and it almost has to be Fredbear's. Fredbear's would be open in 1983, and then we have the Faz coins from Help 1, and it's like, established in 1983, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's like, you can't have a reopening of the same place unless it was open once before. So I'm thinking FNAF 2, the FNAF 2 building was open in summer 1983, and that's when the June 26 happened. That's the reference to the summer job, which is completely incongruous with November 1987. It's like the situation was so similar between the first week Michael worked in 1983, when it was a new building, where he had to be aware of he'd worked at Fredbear's before, which was actually open earlier, so now he's moving over here, now there are no doors to close. Once again, this goes back to Fredbear's being the first opening of what would become the FNAF 1 building that had the doors. That's a different discussion, but I get sidetracked, Tizzy. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just talking about the timeline, but basically I think Phone Guy is talking about something that happened at Fredbear's. And it's recorded in 1983.
I posted the section where he talks about, where the Phone Guy talks about like what happened after the unfortunate incident at sister location, and the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees. So he's just saying the suits, which would refer to all wearable spring-lock suits. It
Right.
seems.
If they were not,
temporary feature will show the classic retire to an appropriate location until replacements arrive. Yeah. So what I would assume is the consequences of this in your timeline is the Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are like discontinued and then are replaced with new Freddy, Bonnie, Chica suits.
we do see in the FNAF 3 cutscenes, we do see robots that Bonnie and Freddy have a button on them that they don't have in FNAF 1. So it looks like this is happening after it's the same location, but there has been an opening between then and now, and the robots have been redesigned. That's a...
This seems to be like earlier in the timeline though.
Mhm.
Than Follow Me. And
Yeah,
everything like
that would be after FNAF 1.
Yeah. So. What do you?
I find it weird.
What do you think actually happened?
Well, I want to make an observation here. It's like an earlier message in FNAF 3, Phone Guy is completely blasé about someone dying of a springlock failure. It's like, if you have a springlock failure, get to the secret room before you bleed out so you don't gross out the customers. It's like he treats it like a completely standard thing of no consequence, which makes him either an absolute sociopath, or he knows that if the employees are actually after family members, and if they get a springlock failure, it's not going to be the actual end of them. But a single suit failing seems to be of no consequence to Phone Guy. It's only when this multiple simultaneous thing happens that suddenly it's like, holy shit, okay, we need to do something about this.
Yeah.
So this is why I interpret this as being several suits failing at exactly the same time, which is statistically nearly impossible unless someone made it happen. So I'm thinking murder was involved in this multiple failure incident, and I'm still figuring out exactly who and when, because in my timeline, the shadows are born after this on June 22nd, so I can't easily blame them for it. And again, still deciphering this. This is part of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... well, I haven't talked about this yet. The stairway of kill events. So, like, you have one person dies in Take Cake to the Children. 2 people die on June 26. You see 3 screaming faces on the wall of FNAF 1. You have 4 MCI kids get heads from the puppet. You have 5 MCI kids that died. Then you have 6 Save Them victims, because there's a hidden pool of blood under the puppet's box. So you have 5 bodies but 6 pools of blood. And it looks like it's designed to be like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 progression. And we know what 1, 2, 5, and 6 are, but not what 3 and 4 are. Well, if it's Fredbear's where this event happened, and FNAF 1 is the reopening of Fredbear's, then you do those 3 screaming faces, and which might also be the 3 dead balloon kids and BB's Air Adventure. It does seem like the number 3 is associated with the event at Fredbear's. So I'm thinking there were 3 victims of the multiple simultaneous springlock failure incident. I'm still figuring out who they are, but that's my number 3 on the progression. And then 4 might either be another event, or it might just be the give gifts, give life. That's, again, open to interpretation, but it looks to me like there are different numbers of victims for all these events to help differentiate them logically.
Yeah, when I look at this phone guy quote, I'm obviously not really sure what's going on because I haven't. There's just a black hole in the middle of that timeline consuming everything. That I just can't wrap my head around right now. But honestly, I think the paradox might have been a thing back like in our last debate that we did on video, or like right around then.
It was mostly Pink
So
Guy,
it's
but
been a
I think you
while,
brought it up
but-
once.
Yeah, I mean, like even on this stream, we've been all over the place, topic-wise. So, like, I'm trying to remember where you started that tangent. With the multiple simultaneous ring lock failures. I remember in one of your videos, I forget which one it was. It might have been the Summer Paradox. You said something that like it bothered me a little bit. You said multiple means more than 2, when it doesn't. It means 2 or more.
All right.
So like that doesn't imply that. Oh no. Okay, I remember I was going with that. That doesn't imply that there's like 3 or 4 or even 5 or several. It literally just means 2 or more.
But it would have to be a big incident for
so-
Phone Guy to take note of it when he doesn't consider one failure to be a significant event.
And that's what I just remembered that I was going to explain. I don't interpret it as like, oh yeah, one death is fine, one death happens all the time. I interpret it more as they are very just casual about the possibility of this happening until it actually happens, and they're like, oh shit, we messed up. Oops. Yeah, this is way worse than we thought. That's how I personally read it. I've also interpreted in the past as like they're fine with random employees dying, but like someone important died in a Springlock suit, and now they're like, okay, we actually have to stop this. Like someone that the Afton family would consider important, like the wife or the son, even. I've had a number of different theories on this, and right now I'm a bit lost, but I'm more curious to see you figure this out, because the one thing that I'm certain of that this incident is the reason why the FNAF 4 or the FNAF sister location Night 4 suit, Funtime Chica, this is the reason she was considered too dangerous and never used.
Well,
That
the other Funtimes kept
seems like
being
it's
used
all-
and kept eating kids on the surface, so...
And that's why I don't think that they're Springlock suits.
But how did they eat souls if they weren't?
Because Springlocks are not the only souls. We've agreed upon this.
Yes, but they're... Alright. The Funtimes are... Why would Funtime Chica be different
I
from the
think you're
other...
starting.
Why would Funtime Chica be different from the other Funtimes in fundamental design, when all of them have those metal cables in them, and they all work on the same principle? They are all made together. Baby is absorbed
I
Elizabeth,
mean,
and the Ballora and Funtime Freddy go and get victims to the surface, come back, have the haunted mill of their stomachs caved out by the scooper for the company to use. It's like these robots can absorb souls and have done so repeatedly. I think it's only a matter of personal preference that whoever was in charge of the facility, Shadow Freddy / Cassidy, in my theories, left Funtime Chica in reserve because she liked Funtime Chica and wanted to use it for a special occasion.
Mangle is the only take apart, put back together attraction in the toy. And from what I've seen, Glamrock Freddy is the only Glamrock animatronic to have a stomach hatch. At least one large enough for oversized birthday cakes. So, Funtime Chica, hypothetically being different from the rest and having a feature that the rest of the Funtimes don't share, is not a contradiction by any means.
All the Glamrocks use the same basic endo, though.
The endo isn't the thing that opens up to allow oversized birthday cakes inside.
No, but it's the thing that contains the kids. You do. It's why the staff bots can't kill Gregory. They have to summon one of the other robots, but the endoskeletons can. The endoskeletons fit a human inside them, and the staff bots can't. There was another point I wanted to make earlier. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Are you saying the endoskeletons themselves are fitting humans inside of them?
The Glamrocks do have those metal limb cages, at least in the feet, like the Endo too. And the stomach hatch the Glamrock Freddy has definitely seems a lot like that Glamrock Freddy has seems a lot like Funtime Freddy's hatch of a similar model. And I'm thinking the Glamrocks are just another edition of Springlock suits. And they've made a ton of them this time from all the bare endos down there.
Well, here's an image of the Glamrock endos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't particularly see like a spot where you could put a human inside.
They're in animatronic mode, but what are those cylinders in the legs for? If not to allow a human to fit inside them.
Well, you'd just be fitting a human's legs in there. I don't like there's no part where the arms would fit, there's no part where the torso would fit or the head.
But the heads are wearable. At least in Freddy's case.
The mascot
regular
head.
Freddy's case, and you're the band.
It was the full head, and it wasn't just there was metal in there, not just the external. The head was
now
usually,
we're talking about Now we're talking about Glamrock Freddy in Security Breach, which has a different endoskeleton than FNAF 1.
Well, Gregory literally goes inside that endoskeleton and dies in that endoskeleton if Freddy runs out of power. So, and he's worried about becoming a meat pretzel if Freddy moves too quickly. It's a hallmark of the Springlock suits. You jar them and the Springlocks could fail. Everything I see points to Glamrock Freddy being a Springlock suit. One of many.
Does Gregory go inside the endoskeleton? Does he go inside the outer shell of Glamrock Freddy that also contains the endoskeleton?
Somehow he dies if Freddy runs out of power. It's like you could tell he's encased inside the thing. You see the wires and stuff in front of him. And then he can look out through Freddy's eyes directly, which is very curious. It's almost like Gregory himself is connected to Glamrock Freddy's electronic system. He can look out through his own visual sensors. That's more than a regular human kid could do, but...
You could also imagine it being the player swapping vision. But, to each their own. My main, going back on the branch a little bit closer to the main tree. Mangle at the very least is an example of one animatronic in a group of animatronics having a unique feature that is not shared by the rest of them. So I don't think that the idea that Funtime Chica has a unique feature like being a spring-locked suit, if hypothetically the other ones aren't, necessarily is a logical contradiction. I don't think it would be a logical contradiction anyway, but there is at least a little bit of a precedent for that.
Well, that's your interpretation then. Michael wasn't originally a tear-apart, put-together attraction, though. That was something that toddlers, again, the super-strength android toddlers, did to her.
True. As with everything, I should have said this in the beginning. As with every debate that I've had in the past few years with anybody, and any document or any post that I've written recently, my goal is not to convince you that I'm 100% right and there's no other interpretation. My goal is to convince you that what I'm saying makes sense, to get you to see where I'm coming from, and to get you to agree that I'm not crazy.
All right, I have similar objectives with my discourse with you. It's good to share things. I cannot explain everything in FNAF. I know there are missing puzzle pieces still, like the multiple spring-lock failure incident, and it's good to exchange notes. And I've been wrong before, so it's good to have people check this stuff. Although most of the stuff we're talking about has been double, triple, quadruple, centuple checked by now. So I do feel rather firmly that the purpose of the springsuits is a solid thing that is the core of FNAF story. So
I would say over the course of the past 3 hours or so, we have both seen each other's perspectives a bit more. We both learned a bit more about each other's theories and timelines, and we both learned more about the FNAF lore in general and what's in the games and the books. So I would say that we've been very successful so far.
Yeah, this is much more civil debate than what we've had in the past. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah. I tend to prefer voice chat debates in general, but a lot of people don't because it's very easy to get distracted.
Well, it's easy as my train of thought. It's like that's why I write everything down. It's like doing this in real time is dangerous. So, go ahead, Nine.
I was just gonna say, I think we've covered most of the points that have been provided.
Yeah.
That both of you listed. So if there's anything else we want to cover, or if anyone has a question in the chat, this might be a good time to tackle some of that.
I would say we open it up to chat questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, we just passed the 3-hour mark on the stream. Nice.
Excellent. Okay, chat. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah.
There's 11 people watching. Hopefully, some of them are interested in FNAF lore.
That's a total record for mine. It's like 4 times what I usually get. So this is great. I'm very new to Twitch, but it was nice to have more input, more people to talk to, and I've been really introverted for a long time. So voice chat is helpful, even if it takes me a lot of energy to get it going.
Yeah. And usually it's not an option for our debates because we'll respond 6 hours apart.
Echo. Curse you, time delay.
Looks like nobody has any questions. Nine, do you have any questions for either of us?
Nothing that I didn't ask when it was relevant.
Fair enough.
You can forego as a question. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Nice.
Drum roll. Suspense.
Ooh, that's a spicy question.
Do you think that Scott had intended us to be able to solve the Horcrux and Android plot with just 1 through 3? Again, it's a... Again, I have to cough. It's 4 games, 1 story. I know we mentioned at one point that FNAF 4 was tacked on to the end, but I don't really see how it could be possible to solve everything without 1 through 4 as a block. And I think most games after that point have made a point of clarifying something about the original story. Horcrux Android plot with just 1 through 3. Well, you do have the superpowered kids tearing apart Mango, which was not originally designed to be torn apart, in the wall drawings of FNAF 2. And you also have things like the Fredbear singing. Do I have those? Do I have those up? They were in my last video, but you have a singing contest between Freddy and Fredbear in the child drawings of FNAF 2. Freddy's a great singer. It's like he makes musical notes. A kid who looks like Charlie/Cassidy with a color scheme is dancing and listening to him. And then you have Fredbear, who's just producing wavy lines like rah, rah, rah. And there are 4 kids, one of which is watching Fredbear, 3 of which are looking off screen at another better singer, presumably Freddy. And it's like, who would program Fredbear to sing badly? You could give Fredbear, who's supposed to be the title character in one of these places, any voice in the entire world, and yet he's a bad singer. And so it's either a guy in the suit, i.e. Henry, trying to show up his younger brother ineffectually, or it's part of someone's soul in that robot whose voice just isn't as good as Michael's. And so it's like there's no programming reason why Fredbear should be a bad singer. That's counterproductive, and yet there it is. And so I definitely think there's a soul, either a living person wearing the suit or a part of a person's soul animating Fredbear. That is the reason why Fredbear is a bad singer. Because the person is bad, not the robot. So that definitely seems like evidence for a Horcruxes being involved in FNAF 2. As for other things, when did the novels, that was after, novels came out after FNAF 4, right? Okay.
It was after FNAF 4, but it's
Okay.
arguable whether or not Scott was working on the novel either prior or concurrent to FNAF 3.
Yeah, he said it was written for 10 months, so it was definitely in the works. Silver Eyes was being put together before FNAF 4. And I do think there are elements like Charlie and her 4 closets. Like that's pretty spectacular, but the game makes it clear, the novels make it clear that she is actually an android with full human functionality, and that they use the different android versions to simulate growing up, with like Ella being the smallest one, the smallest closet, the adolescent Charlie being in the middle, our Charlie/Teen Charlie in the 3rd closet, which is empty at the beginning of the story, and then the 4th closet being her adult form, which is where baby comes out of. I think these stories set up the template for how Afton children are converted into androids and then grow up. And I think all the Afton children went through this process. So you get that process template from the novels, you then take it and import it back into the games, and then you have Michael Afton being bitten twice in the 83 and 87, and remembering both of them at the same time in FNAF 4. Because there are elements of both of those in the impossible bite we see there. It's like both bites happened at Freddy's, but were in Fredbear's. The bite of 87 was a single victim, yet all 5 of the MCI kids are there, and the robots they ended up being stuffed into. So I think it's like a merged memory of 83 and 87, with Michael being the bite victim both times. And you can set up situations like that because there are multiple Michaels out there. He like Charlie, he does have other differently aged forms, and probably a balloon kid somewhere. The balloon kids that in FNAF 4 they seem to morph into actual kids. I think there's a way they can just set their synthetic flesh to look like plastic and then pass themselves off as robots. Go ahead, Spook.
Thank you. I agree with like the first, maybe a third of what you said. I agree that the Charlie being a robot in the 4th closet was definitely planned from the beginning. I think on page 7, there was like a clue that in retrospect was clearly pointing towards that. I also think that even though FNAF 4, even though I firmly believe that FNAF 4 was meant to be the final game, I think that like Scott would have continued the books anyway. I think he had a larger story planned for that, and it was one like complete thing in his head. Maybe not every detail, the plot point of like Carlton dying and being revived in the end. I don't think that was being planned since FNAF 4, but like Charlie's main story arc. Um,
Hmm.
so uh, that's how I think that Michael being a robot is possible. Because I think that like we're supposed to figure out that this kid, even though he dies, still grows up to become all these game protagonists. Um, and like us figuring that out is pretty much the dead end of that theory in FNAF 4 itself, but then the novels were always going to.
Well, I think Sister Location was designed to show us that Michael Afton had a metal endoskeleton. It's like it makes a point of he eats popcorn, he seems real, but then things happen like he has the heads up display when he talks to Funtime Freddy. Like the most people, he somehow is able to play the what? Are you okay?
Yeah, it's just like I forgot that was a point you made. I wasn't expecting
I'm
it
I'm
coming.
making it's one of the weaker points, so I'm working up to the good ones.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you start seeing clues that maybe he's not as human as we think he is. Somehow he's able to perfectly mimic Bon Bon's voice, even though Bon Bon is right freaking there, and it still works. So then you have him in the Night 4 suit. It's a wiggle tight suit specified. There is no room. He can barely move, and he doesn't have use of his hands. But somehow he's able to manipulate all these spring locks in front of him, seemingly with his mind or a magnetic field or some such. And then you have no matter what he does, several like 20 mini arenas crawl down his throat. They You knock the ones off the sides, but the ones in the middle keep coming in, keep coming in, keep coming in, and there's no sign of them ever leaving at any point during the games. This is referenced directly in the Phasma Fright story Room for One More, where the guy falls asleep at his job and has more and more mini arenas crawled in his throat every night, so he starts looking at the Steve Puff Marshmallow Man. It's like they're on his insides. I've flipped over the cat food again, and they start stretching his flesh and eventually try tearing it off. I think this is an analogy for what actually happens to Michael, because he goes home, eats popcorn, he comes back, but he's still infested with mini arenas. So you go into night 5, you meet the activated baby, and the background sound is drips dot MP3 or wave, one of those two. It's like just it sounds like water occasionally dripping. But the moment you open baby's side hatch, it turns into guts dot MP3, and it's a subtly different sound of like flesh being torn from bone. But nobody has flesh in this room except for Michael. And then the sound follows him back out into the silent Funtime auditorium. It's like, okay, he's the center of the sound. It's coming from him. And then when you go into either the private office or the scooping room, it's like you discover that he doesn't have any flesh anymore. The sound is gone. When the scooper hits him, it rebounds off him with a metallic clang, as if hitting an object of similar mass. And then you see the reflection of Michael's face in Innard's endoskeleton in the private room, and it's just a metal face that looks like the interface of Springtrap staring back out of him with a glowing eye. It's like I think Sister Location was designed from the ground up to show us that Michael Afton was actually an android. And I
Hmm.
see you don't approve because you're falling asleep on camera. So okay.
Oh no, I'm just stretching because I've been for a while. Um, I do currently agree Michael Afton is, but the other main version of Mike Victim is Mike Revive, which takes the precedent set in the fourth closet for Golden Freddy to be able to just like revive people by giving them a piece of their soul, and extrapolates that into FNAF 4's ending and FNAF World and the Bite Victim's death in general. Um, I did notice we got another question a while ago.
Yes,
Yeah, where do you
from
think Shadow Freddy is in Security Breach? I love that question.
I,
Okay. Oh, go for it. Go for it.
I I personally think that they're just in the Princess game when the yellow princess has a purple counterpart that does exactly what it does.
I would agree with Spook there, but I'm very curious as to where Ferret thinks
I
Shadow Freddy
actually
is.
do agree with that. I think that Charlie/Cassidy soul was split into the puppet and Shadow Freddy, and that part of that is symbolized in the Princess Quest video games, which he splits into the light and dark halves. I actually agree with you about that part. As far as we noticed that in the basement, like you have the one daycare center where Moon is, and then Sun/Moon is, and you go down the sub basement and you find the endoskeleton daycare. There's a side room that seems to have a slashed picture of Henry's daughter with a bow tie in her hair in front of a box, a golden box that when you open it has Nightmare. It's Nightmarian that comes out of that thing. It's clearly Nightmarian, but the description is Nightmare plush. So it's like it's only Shadow Freddy and not the puppet. The Nightmare is a fusion of the two of those, and then the endoskeleton revives and tries to chase you, and you also see other Nightmarian puppets around. One of them is in the Bonnie Bowl. You go into the back. It's way on top, looking at you, and then you take the Golden Monty statue, and then the endoskeletons spawn above, and they almost ate me in my playthrough. I still have to put on YouTube, but
Yeah.
it's like I think she's out there. I think Nightmare was the one. I think Nightmare was the one who actually built the Pizzaplex. She controlled it for the longest time until Henry came back in FNAF 6 and tried to destroy Fazbear Entertainment, but someone kept it going, and then had control of the company when Glitchtrap came in and took over with this virus. So while Glitchtrap is trying to get control now, someone had it before him, and I'm thinking that's Nightmare, and she still has control over like the Nightmare staff bots and various other facilities. So I think she's still a background player who's trying to control the Pizzaplex. And I think she may be also a component of the Blob, since Lefty would be part of that amalgam. Unless Lefty escapes somehow. Oh, the puppet's in there.
See, that drawing you mentioned of the girl in the bed with the flash through it.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. You referred to it as Henry's daughter.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about the same person. I just don't know Henry's daughter. The girl receiving cake from the puppet in that one drawing in the Cassidy. It does very much look like Cassidy. But there are two main interesting things about that, and being there is she is in the exact bed from the gameplay segments in FNAF 4. It's the exact same bedsheet pattern.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's a lamp to the side, and it does look like a hospital bed as well.
Yeah. It seemed to be on a track, like it's a movable bed that you would find in a hospital. So not only is that interesting, but also the entire context of those drawings it's like what to do and what not to do. There's like a check mark on one drawing and an X on another drawing, which seems to be for the animatronics.
Like instructions for
in one picture, yeah, exactly. In one picture, the animatronic will be doing something right, and in another picture, the animatronic will be doing something wrong.
Just like that.
But in the drawing of Cassidy, there's an X over it, which does not correlate to any good way to do something, and there's also no animatronic in the image.
Yeah,
so
true.
What's being done wrong?
Well, I think Glitchtrap is the one coming by and editing things. Like you notice, it's trying to tell you don't look away from the robot. It's going to eat your face. So there's supposed to be an X, but then something purple crossed out and said check mark. Like, no, do this. And then you have a bunny's outline and the endoskeleton later on. It's like hi, but I'm thinking that's my theory is the Glitchtrap is actually a fusion of Shadow Bonnie and William. It's a copy of what was in Springtrap, and I think that William stuffed Sammy into the Barefront Spring Bonnie suit, which was the very one he got trapped into himself later. So both are the victim and the killer of the other, and Sammy's the one on the outside shell. That's why Plushtrap, we went over there, Plushtrap chomps of the outer jaw, not the inner one. The inner one belongs to William, the outer one belongs to him. And the two of them are together as Glitchtrap. So they're sort of like an amalgamation. The two of them are are fused into one thing. And so basically, you could say that Shadow Bonnie is the one who came in and tried to take the Pizzaplex from Shadow Freddy. And then Shadow Bonnie's like rewriting all of these things, and I think part of that campaign was slashing a picture of his sister, who turned into Shadow Freddy, in that door down there. It's kind of a diss, I think.
Glitch Trap really said cause chaos, throw cakes.
Say what?
Glitch Trap really said cause chaos, throw cakes.
Where was this from?
Glitch Trap is pro cake throwing because
Okay.
he put the check mark on the picture where the cake is being thrown.
Yeah. The context behind the nursery is very interesting because that's what that area is called. And you have all of like the endos there that are almost being like instructed how to behave like they're children.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
This is
Um,
in favor
there's-
of. Oh,
A lot to read into.
I do think there are parts of people's souls in those robots. So they
Or
are
even if
children,
they're-
in a sense.
Even if they're just so advanced that they've like created an AI that replicates what being a person is, but it still needs to be taught what right or wrong is. I think there's different ways to interpret it, and I think it's very interesting.
I agree with that.
I am a bit.
I can't find the
out,
trolley
though,
picture.
And I think
Okay.
we've reached the conclusion here. So.
Yeah.
Shall we wrap up?
Sure.
I suppose.
Yeah, I think this is effective. I think we got a lot off our chest. Is this video also being like edited and uploaded to YouTube?
I'm deciding how much to edit it. Probably just going to. Actually, they can actually see how big our faces are in this image right now. I might expand them so it's easier to see our expressions, but I think I'm probably just leaving mostly unedited.
Yeah.
Both of your faces
I
are
went crazy with editing
my-
last time. It took me 3 months, and it's like, okay, I need to. At some point, reality has to set in. I have to do other things.
Yeah. I'm happy with how this went.
Yeah, so am I. It was nice talking to you, gentlemen. Do you have any more questions? Welcome back, Dark
There's back.
Scooterman. Dark Scooterman, this is your last chance to ask a question before we go away.
Yeah, we're wrapping up. So if you've got any particular questions for
Winter wrap up in summer. Yes, I am a brony.
I do have one last thing that I want to show off. Please. This is my son.
Ah, Fluffy.
His name is George, but like it's spelled wrong. The last two letters are swapped, so it's spelled like Georeg, but it's pronounced George.
That is so cute.
George washing machine.
Ha!
Very referential history.
Yes.
This is my Blackfoot ferret plushie. Hi.
Oh,
Your
someone's
face. Yeah,
asking
face,
what the
your face.
person in the cutout is. That's Danny DeVito back there.
Mhm. I do have some
Should've
FNAF
expected
plushies
that
over
question.
here. I'm not sure if you can see them right now. There we go. Okay, or Funko things.
Yeah.
I have some FNAF Funko Pops in my room, but I
You guys
have no
a
webcam
video
to
camera
show
next time. Okay.
maybe I'll get a webcam.
I finally got one, and it's nice to. I used to be really afraid of this, so I'm glad to get this out of my system.
Well, I've had my camera on in VCs before, but I'd have to go off my laptop to do that. And my desktop is just much better, runs much smoother. So
All right.
So do we have a rate? Do we have a rate suggestion?
A rate?
A rate
Raid.
suggestion. It's Twitch. We
raid.
can. Who do we send these fine people to next?
Oh. Oh yeah. Well, I only follow 6 people, and I'm talking to 2 of them right now.
Okay.
Huh. I
Um,
have not streamed on Twitch since March probably, and I'm probably gonna go to sleep after this.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. The one Matt Pat's editor of that Cyber channel is on. We could go rate him.
Alright.
Okay.
All right.
Let me type this in. Hope I don't cast the spell incorrectly.
I'm gonna head out. See you guys later.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
nice
later.
talking. Nice talking to you both.
Thanks to debate. There, folks. Thanks for joining us in this adventure.